Welcome to the Bloody Disgusting Network. The ensuing show will change, transform, and otherwise alter you. Good luck.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of oh.
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast presented by Bloody FM, the number one horror podcast network in the world. I'm your host today, Michael Monroeville Mall Rothman, still hanging out in the not-so-swinging 60s, at least not yet, where I've been biding my time with some friends here in Jodie, Texas. But we're not here for long, unfortunately. As we've been discussing these past few weeks, we're on a mission, and that mission is to finish our coverage of Stephen King's 11/22/63. And part of that coverage includes a very depressing, some might even say downright devastating, detour away from the school plays, the pie fights, the Friday night lights, and the slices of pound cake here in Jodie, Texas. And we're going to go right into the Devil's Den of Dallas and Fort Worth, where we'll be on another stakeout. No, not a 30th anniversary celebration of the 1993 John Badham classic, but a stakeout with our man, George Amberson, Jake Epping to us, constant listeners, as he watches every move, and we do mean every move, of the great cinematic villain of all time, Lee Harvey Oswald, and some guy named George and a guy named Paul. Unfortunately, no John and Ringo on this trip, at least not yet. Weird. But it wouldn't be a stakeout without some pals. After all, the movie just doesn't work without the star-studded crew we all love to death. So let's introduce my fellow constants on this mission. She's the Rosie to my Richie, Dreyfuss, that is. Jen, say hello and tell us if you've ever seen either one of the stakeout movies.
Hi, this is Jen to the Rage Adams. No, I have not seen either of the stakeout movies, although I love the title, Another Stakeout, as the sequel. That's just perfect. I've also seen, I think it's a Beverly Hills Cop movie where they are on a stakeout and someone puts a banana peel into an exhaust pipe. Maybe it's a full banana.
It's a full banana, yeah.
And there is also an episode of Frasier where Niles goes on a stakeout with Martin. So I feel like I've got the genre covered from those two ends.
Martin is a former cop, right?
He is, yes.
Right.
And he is staking out Daphne's, doing some work for Daphne's new fiance. Doesn't stay around too long. But Niles puts crackers in his, what he thinks is soup, but it's actually alcohol.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess bad day for Niles because I don't think you could take so many drinks. But okay, so you haven't seen Stakeout or Another Stakeout. Another Stakeout, the buddy cop action comedy. God, that's a long.
Right?
No, that's 48 hours and another 48 hours. So this one's we'll go into it a little bit more, but let's
It's not
see
a genre I'm super familiar with.
Well, it's totally cool. I believe our next constant is a buddy cop fan at the very least. The wild card of our group, our Emilio Flieger. Please regale us with your favorite quote from either Stakeout, Another Stakeout, or hey, let's just go all out and do buddy cop movies, you know?
Or Frasier.
Yeah, or Frasier.
This is Dan, the P is silent in poundcake Flieger. And I hope I'm not popping on the mic with a PPP. That's why I keep the P silent. I've never seen the Stakeout movies, and this will probably drive you crazy. I've never watched Frasier.
Oh my God.
No.
Yeah. It seems like a really funny show, but then once I got like streaming, it seemed daunting how many seasons there were. So I'm familiar with it just through pop culture.
Yeah.
I mean, but probably Bad Boys might be my favorite. That or Point Break, if I'm doing some kind of buddy
Point Break,
cop.
Yeah, that is a buddy cop movie. Yeah.
I'm more of a surfer dude than an old man on retirement dude. Well, I guess Gary Busey was close to retirement in that.
Which is so strange because I'm sure he was like 38 or something like that in that movie. You know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I watched Under Siege the other night too, and he's in that, and I forgot that he dresses in drag to.
Oh, does he?
to mock the playmate in the movie. I don't know. It's strange. It's before he totally went off his rocker, but you could,
you could say Point Break is a stakeout movie in the sense that Reeves is hanging out with the crew. He's staking out in a way, you know.
He is.
He's undercover.
Undercover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just always think of the, I'm getting too old for this shit line from those cop movies.
Classic line from both the Lethal Weapon series and also the Loaded Weapon movie. Which Lethal
Weapon is a Christmas movie also.
It is. Don't forget.
That.
Don't forget. Starring Santa himself, Mad Mel Gibson.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The Fat Man.
That's Point Break is a hot movie. So
yes, it's a hot movie with the late and great
Patrick Swayze.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the first DVD I ever owned too. Was Point Break.
Really?
Oh, I had another sort of Cameron adjacent first DVD or big DVD, which was the T2. So,
Catherine Bigelow, movie of all time.
Yeah, your favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
It's been fun just because really quick. Arnold's been on a press tour because of his new book. So he's been appearing on multiple podcasts, and they always get into T2 discussion, which I love.
Yeah, he does.
We got to get him on our show.
Yeah, let's get him.
Fantastic.
We should get Schwarzenegger on the final episode to talk about the Dark Tower connections and the time travel,
and K-Cop.
Yeah.
So cut that. You got to understand, it's the brotherhood. It's a fellowship. He could be on Running Man. I mean, they're remaking it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay, well, there's our King connection.
Well, when Edgar Wright remakes Running Man, if he ever does, we'll get Schwarzenegger's word on this. You know, he's like, I don't think this is a very good movie. I think the one I did was a much better movie.
They let me keep the jumpsuit.
Yeah. Gosh, what if I did the whole episode in Schwarzenegger? Would that?
I mean, didn't we read all of the Pound Cake in a Schwarzenegger voice?
We did at one
Holly
point. Yeah, just ridiculous. Well, look, we are ridiculous here on the Losers Club, and let's just say we've got another ridiculous loser with us for today's episode. Our special guest is straight out of the West, but not Hollywood. No. Rachel, come on down, say hello, and tell us your first time with not only the Stakeout films, but also 11/22/63.
Oh, hi. It's Rachel Rabbit Hole Reeves, and so excited. And I feel like I already have so much to say. Okay. Stakeout. Haven't seen it, but love a good buddy cop. Love 48 Hours. Love Dead Heat. And also, if you are listening to the audiobook at all of this, which I'm sure Jen is familiar with, there is a lot where it sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger when Craig Wasson is doing the George voice.
The George DeMoran show voice. It sounds just like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Just like that. So there is a tie here. He does sound sounds exactly like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I couldn't help but think that the whole time I was hearing it. So 11/22/63, you guys. This book has been taking over my life, and I am not mad at it. The first time I read it was pretty close to after it came out, and it was kind of the perfect time because I was in college, and it was when I was actually really falling in love with history. I was taking a ton of history classes just because I liked them. Ended up minoring in history just because I took so many classes. And I was just so fascinated, and it was lining up with everything that I was getting really interested into. I was reading a lot of Howard Zinn and just a ton of stuff. So I was just floored because it was everything I wanted then. And I haven't read it since that must have been 2012, 2013, in that time period. And I'm finding that I just loved it equally as much this time around. So cannot wait to get into this.
The history hook is important, as we discussed in that first episode. They really did try to market it beyond the King fans. But you were a constant reader by then also. So was the King, name already a hook for you when you?
Oh yeah,
when you saw it? Oh, yeah.
100%. I did have a little period. It's funny. It's like Randall and I. It sounds like had a very similar experience. We're kind of dropped off for a bit just because of life stuff got in the way. But it was this period that I was really starting to hey, let's see what he's up to. And then this just was okay, yeah, I've clearly been an idiot. Why have I not been just reading all of these things? So this was me getting back into King hardcore.
It's so funny that it really is the case for all of us in that sense. Mm-hmm. Under the Dome probably really jump-started it. But then this is the one that made me go overdrive. I was I have to read every piece of King now. And I said it in the first episode, but it was me chasing what happens at the end of this and being like, oh, there's got to be some sort of evidence that some, X, Y, and Z happen. And I'm going to go into that in 2 episodes from now. But it's just funny how this was our big entry point. And I think that's what makes this series so special so far is that, we all come from a place of not just love, but a new gateway, which is, I think is always fun to discuss. Like nobody ever really talks about that. Like the going back to one of your favorites. It's as a form of a gateway.
Yeah.
But that's a unique thing to King because I feel like just about every constant loser that has grown up reading him left and then came back, and that this seems to be a common gateway, I think is really interesting.
I had breakup sex with John Irving. I went back to him.
Oh, yeah. Man, I read some John Irving too. Yeah. And I was like,
big fan.
I mean, I am too, but I prefer King. So
Irving loves to torture his loved ones in his books, right? Like they're all based on his family members, and then people's dicks get bitten off, and
lots of prostitution too.
Yeah.
Like every book has prostitutes, and you're like, all right, John.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look, what is the page? What is the blank space? If not a sandbox for the imagination, no matter how dirty you can be. Well, I think that's a good
form for our desires.
Yes. Well, I mean, personally, I think another gateway is the series into the stakeout movies. So I think that if you haven't seen the stakeout movies, which clearly nobody on this podcast has.
You're on Stakeout Island over there.
I was too busy watching Mr. Holland's Opus a million times.
Yeah, I don't even know what decade it is.
Well, Richard Dreyfuss, Emilio Estevez, just great team. The sequel,
I do love
you get
Emilio Estevez.
Dennis Farina of Michael Mann fame. You get Kathy Moriarty, was also in Casper, and a ton of other. And which movie?
Soap Dish.
Well, and Kindergarten Cop.
That's right. She's in Kindergarten Cop.
It all comes back. It all comes back. This we like to stay on the path of the beam most of the time. Speaking of which, we should do that now. So as the Hold Steady once sang, or still sings actually, we are stuck between stations this episode. So unfortunately, we won't be able to hit up the Derry Public Library this time. Instead, we're going to go to a different library. Maybe it's not even really called a library. It's something that will be world renowned in a few years from now. It's the Book Depository.
I think the Book Depository would be a good bet. Book Depository. Damn, he could be anywhere.
All right, so unlike the Derry Public Library, this place doesn't have a ton of books. There's not a lot of rich texts. But there's some stuff in here. There's a lot of boxes with books. And one of the boxes happens to have, oh my God, a recap of where we're at right now in 11/22/63. And I'm not really good with reading handwriting. I'm no doctor. So I'm trying to see, it says Jen, the recap ruler Adams. I can't make out this handwriting, so I think you should, since you wrote it, you should certainly read it and catch us up on where we're at.
Well, my handwriting is illegible, and I'm physically incapable of writing in cursive anymore. So yeah, I should probably take the synopsis over. Okay. After recovering from his scare at the football game, Jake and Sadie try to deny their feelings for each other, but after dancing the Lindy Hop to In the Mood at a Sadie Hawkins dance, they make out in the car. Sadie invites him over for a picnic lunch and asks him to bring pound cake and condoms, leading to the birth of our favorite section of the book episodes. Shout out to Justin from our text thread. Ladies and gentlemen, the eagle has landed.
Pound cake.
I mean, that is what I felt like when I actually got to that section. I was like, it's pound cake. Sadie tells Jake about her abusive ex-husband, Johnny Clayton, who has a bad case of OCD and constantly warned her about nuclear war. He would lay a broomstick over the covers, drawing a line that she could never cross. Instead of another play, they produced the Jodie Jamboree, a variety show that ends with them dancing to In the Mood and a giant pie fight. It's the second time I cry in the book. They've raised money for plastic surgery for Bobby Jill, whose face was scarred in a car wreck. At first, Sadie and Jake hashtag JD, have a great relationship with all the pound cake either of them can eat. But eventually, Jake's little slip-ups, like singing songs that haven't been written yet and using slang at the grocery store, catch up to him, and Sadie decides that she doesn't want to be with a man who can't be honest with her. They break up, and Sadie goes to Reno to get a divorce. Realizing that her name is very similar to Doris Dunning, Jake reminds Sadie and Deke and Ellen Dockery to look out for her ex-husband, Johnny Clayton. Foreshadowing. Jake quits his job teaching to focus on watching Oswald full-time, which turns out to be a blessing in disguise because Ellen Dockery, the new principal, has found out that all of his references are fake. Jake moves into an Oswald adjacent apartment in Dallas and another one in Fort Worth and watches this sad life unfold. When not abusing his wife Marina, Oswald makes friends with a man named George de Mohrenschildt, who sounds just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and starts making plans to assassinate General Walker. Back in Jodie, Sadie has an accidental overdose after watching Kennedy's speech about the Cuban Missile Crisis. Fortunately, Jake makes it to her house in time to revive her and tells her how it will resolve, and they get back together. But nothing gold can stay, and Johnny breaks into Sadie's house. He calls her a bunch of ugly names, blames her for everything wrong in his life, and slices her face. Deke and Jake try to intervene, and they kind of do, but Johnny cuts his throat in front of them all.
So a lot happened. I'd say, happened. This is our longest section of the book. I think it was around 224 pages or 275. I can't remember, but I think it's 224. So that was an incredible recap. Imagine if all this stuff unfolded with the number of locations that we had last week, where it's just like,
I know. It would be like my pet. I would be Charlie with my red string, just trying to piece it all together.
Well, time has passed. I wanted to ask everyone real quick though, because they talk about like how he's been here for almost 4.5 years at some point in the section. Does it feel like 4.5 years at this point in the book?
No, not to me.
No,
I don't think so either. Yeah. I think it feels pretty I don't know. I know that Jake and Sadie have a long relationship, but it feels like a couple of months. Like it feels like they're still in their honeymoon phase for a long time. Partly because they're just fucking.
And even when they get out of it, it's like, yep, the winter of '62 was a tough one.
Yeah, like that chapter in It. Like nothing much happened in August.
Yeah. I mean, is there room for, I don't know, like some short stories? He
some
likes
smut fanfic?
Yeah,
yes.
Well, maybe, like he does go back to the well sometimes. I mean, we're going to go back to Cujo with Vic Trenton.
Go back to the Pound Cake Bakery.
Maybe he does. Maybe he goes to Jodie and like, what if in like one of his novellas, because he needs to, I guess he did If It Bleeds in 2020. So we're not really due technically for a novellas collection.
Yeah.
And we're getting a short story collection next year with You Like It Darker. What if one of those stories happens to be just a fucking smutty part of that winter, and it's just like
and
we're back with Jake and Sadie, and it's kind of like Richard Linklater's Waking Life, where you get to go back with Jake and with Celine, and isn't Jake in there? I can't remember.
The winter of Jake's discontent.
Yeah. So
his dick's content. Sorry.
Yeah. God damn it.
I'm sorry.
Rachel, what do you think about the time passing here?
I mean, I appreciate it from as a reader standpoint because this book is massive.
Yeah.
And like I feel like I've been reading this nonstop for a few weeks since like I've watched no movies, I've watched no television. Like this has been my life, like, and I'm still going. And so I appreciate it from that perspective. But it doesn't feel like 4.5 years. So it's hard to actually get a grasp of like what he's doing in the meantime. So I think there's definitely room for some short stories, especially if you want smut. Like Sadie's new to this whole sex thing. Like, let's hear some funny like experimentation stories of like finding like what Sadie's into. Like, there's so much room for some dirty, smutty, but also like some interesting stories. Or just I don't know. She's clumsy, right? She's falling around all the time. That's got to lead to some funny moments that they could.
Surely they're going to do it in the library too.
Yeah.
When she's a cocktail waitress, I can just imagine her spilling drinks all over people.
Exactly. Yeah. Give us some more Vegas stories. Like, like who she's crossing paths with at this time. Are you kidding me?
The Candlewood Inn could be like Peyton's place. Like, we could learn more about all of the other people. Yeah.
She could also be crossing paths with like various mafioso characters in the underworld. That
The
were
Sinatra,
possibly involved.
like the Rat Pack and like all sorts of people in Vegas at that time. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess she's in what?
Reno.
Reno. But
okay, the impersonators, the Elvis impersonators in Reno.
Anyone been to Reno?
Yeah,
It's not.
Let's go to Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. Even as a kid, especially as a kid, I was just like, where the fuck are we?
Doesn't Homer says it's like as if Ned Flanders ran Vegas or something?
Yeah. It's just, not great. I mean, when they mention that she's going there, I'm like, oh no. But the time does pass in this. And, like, as we know from our own experiences with time, because, look, time is passing through us right now. A lot of the culture has changed. And we went through the culture of 1958 in that first episode. And so now that we're so far deep, or like not even that deep in the 60s, but we're deep into time, I thought we'd kind of check up and catch up on where we're at too with the culture. Rachel, you've got some finds for us as the archivist, the pop culture scientist of this group.
Yeah, so let's dig in, strap in, because we're going to blow through some time pretty quickly here. Something I think is super interesting about this time period, in 1960, about half of the America population is under 18.
Oh,
so
wow.
Super young. And it's also the most affluent generation in U.S. history to date anyways. And so American teenagers have about 22 billion a year at their disposal, which in 2005, I guess, according to the internet, equaled 140 billion. Cars became comparatively pretty affordable. So that made them a super accessible kind of touchstone. Mid 60s, an average car cost only about 1/3 of the median household income, whereas today a new car costs more than a lot of people make in an entire year. And so for music, the radio was still king at this time. Cars they still had radio. They didn't have 8-track players in cars till the 60s, 65, which is past our book here. Unless you were super rich, and apparently in 1955, Chrysler had a turntable in its high-end cars that would play 7 inches. But I don't know, cars and playing a record, that sounds just like a disaster.
Yeah, it's a scratch waiting to happen.
Yeah. So
Scratch.
a hardcore scratch, not good for your records, not good for your needle.
But if you like manage to be, fixing the vinyl and it scratches right as you crash into a car, that's like comedic timing.
Right? Yes. Or as you're sitting there in a tree and like the record's turning slow. It's just very poetic, I think.
Yeah. Trust me, your kids are going to love it. Yeah.
Catch that reference, guys? I'm sure you did.
Oh, Back to the Future.
So for music, this was such an interesting time for music. It was just like everything, I guess. It was a huge time of transition. This is where we're going to see the rise of soul and R&B music and popular mainstream culture. And then eventually kind of following past where we're at because of, a few events that happened later in this book, popular music would become very political and influenced along with, by Vietnam, sexual revolution, civil rights, environmentalism. Something that I think is fascinating. Okay, Elvis went into the Army in 1958.
Yeah.
And he was in the Army till 1960. So that left a huge window because this was a very monoculture time, pre-internet days. So when he was gone, it allowed for other people to kind of step in. And although he did come back to music after he got out of the Army. Okay, so I was going to run through some of the top Billboard hits from 60 to 63 because I think you can really see some of this evolution happening. So top Billboard hits of 1960 in order from 1 to, 3. Percy Faith, Theme from a Summer Place, Jim Reeves, He'll Have to Go, and the Everly Brothers, Kathy's Clown, not Kathy's Curse, which was very different.
So Everly Brothers were strong because they were in 1950.
Hardcore. Everly Brothers were huge at this time. 1961 was Bobby Lewis, Tossin' and Turning, Patsy Cline, I Fall to Pieces, and The Highwaymen, Michael, not starring John Travolta. 1962, Acker Bilk, who's Oh, just such a funny looking man. Stranger on the Shore, Ray Charles, I Can't Stop Loving You, Dee Dee Sharp, Mashed Potato Time, which is always very popular here in Idaho. 1963, The Beach Boys, Surfin' USA, Skeeter Davis, The End of the World and the Cascades, Rhythm of the World. So we're starting to kind of see a pivot away from some of the kind of, I don't know, hoki's not the word, but country, simple, and getting into like surf rock, R&B, soul, that kind of stuff. Motown Records came about in 1960. That's where we get the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, Temptations, Stevie Wonder. Stack Records got going in 1957. Get Booker T and the MGs, Otis Redding. Also start to get a lot more evolved folk revival and roots music. And it kind of hit its period during this time period. So that's where we get the Kingston Trio, Joan Baez, Pete Seeger, Peter, Paul, and Mary, which was my very first concert, you guys, as a kid.
That's weird because the Everly Brothers was my first concert. So that's
it's like my parents took me when I was like 3 or something.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, amazing! See?
Wow. Flieger, what was yours? It's gonna be like Slipknot.
Puddle of Mud.
Papa Roach.
No, just like I some blues musicians that I can't really put my finger on, but my dad would go to a lot of.
See, also super popular during this period within a certain segment. I mean, I'm talking broad mainstream. Obviously, jazz was really popular as well, and blues with certain people, but this is like main radio play. Newport folk festivals got really big and popular during this time.
Wow. And
then right after our book kind of concludes here, February 1964, Beatlemania becomes a thing as they arrive in the US and dominates everything. So that's kind of where we were at with the music, movies and TV. The advent of color TV in 1953 had a huge impact on movies because in 1962, I was going to say by the early 1960s, about 90% of the US households had a television set, which was like a huge increase. And so this impacted the theaters as well, because in 1962, there were about 6,000 drive-ins in the US. By 1963, that number dropped to 3,500 and has just continued to dwindle since then.
Drive-in will never die.
I know, so sad. And then this also, like traditional theaters, felt this change is because they wanted people were staying home more, understandable. And so the movie industry kind of peaked in the 60s in 1964 with the release of 502 films. Holy shit. What were we getting in the 60s, in this time period that we're talking about? The Hays Code was still in effect at this time. That was from 1934 to 1968, which, if people don't know, was a set of pretty strict industry guidelines that spelled out acceptable and unacceptable content for motion pictures produced for the public audience in the United States. It became decreasingly enforced in like 1964 because the main guy in charge died. So people were like, we're kind of over this. But where we're talking about, it was still in effect. And so everything movie-wise was pretty wholesome. Lots of historical dramas and adventure films. Cleopatra, Ben-Hur, Spartacus, Lawrence of Arabia, Mutiny on the Bounty, that kind of stuff. James Bond shows up in 1962. Sci-fi and fantasy films. The Time Machine, Jason and the Argonauts was popular. Lots of comedies and rom-coms, like Some Like It Hot, Marilyn Monroe, obviously. she might know somebody in this book. I don't know.
That's true.
The Shaggy Dog, goofy comedies like that. I love that. I do too. Early Kurt Russell films, you guys. Musicals, remember them? South Pacific, West Side Story, The Music Man.
Mary Poppins.
Horror, just because I know we all love horror here, was not super huge. Psycho was really the biggest thing, obviously.
And I'm surprised he doesn't mention it, or at least they have a scene where he goes to see it, because that movie is incredibly influential in him and stuff. So it was some restraint on his part to not just I ended up catching Psycho. That was all the rage in America.
And like seeing people's reactions and stuff would be so cool. Just knowing what's happening, like wait, you guys. There was a lot of British stuff and Universal Monster stuff, of course, but mainstream big wise, it was really just Psycho. TV, apparently, according to the internet, this period falls under what's called the network era of TV. And that's because ABC, CBS, NBC is dominating. And quote here from Wikipedia, so you know it's true. It says, during the network era, television acted as a cultural institution. It communicated values and ideas within a culture. Networks selected programs that would reach a wide range of people, such as family sitcoms, police procedurals, and game shows. However, networks still directed their programs to the white middle class. Rural Americans were the major target audience in the 1960s, and rural sitcoms and westerns were among television's most popular shows in that decade. This would change towards the later 60s, but where we're at, this is what's really popular. We see King talk about a lot of these things. So 1958, some of those popular things were the Donna Reed Show, 77 Sunset Strip, which he mentions. And then 59, we get the first broadcast of The Twilight Zone, Dennis the Menace, Rocky and Bullwinkle, which is mentioned, but not in this context. The Untouchables, which he mentions, and also the first Barbie commercial ever airs. 1960, we get Route 66, which I think he mentions. And also, it's the first debate between JFK and Nixon on television, which obviously is hugely influential and a big deal for not only this election, but also just what's happening in general with debates on television and how politics are viewed.
Yeah, it's kind of comment. People who listened to the radio version thought Nixon won, and people who watched the television version thought Kennedy won. So
Nixon's all sweaty and
wasn't he like sick or something? That's the one where he didn't look good, but Kennedy looked super hot and dreamy.
So really kind of blurred that line, I think, between like politics and entertainment, and I'm going to leave it at that. 1961, Car 54, Where Are You? Was a popular show, which he mentions in the book. 1962, you get The Jetsons, Beverly Hillbillies, McHale's Navy. 1963, Doctor Who, General Hospital. Wow. So the idea of the soap, My Favorite Martian, and Petticoat Junction. So you kind of see those sort of Western rural kind of target shows. And then also in 1963, that's when Martin Luther King does his I Have a Dream speech, and it broadcasts to the world. And also, unfortunately, when everybody gets to learn about the assassination of JFK. It's just so fascinating to me because you think about, like, this is how people found out about things, right? The radio and the TV, and how it reminds me a lot of like my experience of what happened on September 11th. I heard about it on the radio during a morning show, went to school, watched TV all day, watched the news all day. And it's just like how it galvanized people. And we see him kind of see that in the book, right? At the bar. And so it's just hugely popular, hugely influential, but kind of not quite catalyzed yet into what it will become with like a lot of political revolution and things and that kind of stuff. And so it's kind of this interesting sweet spot, I think, where there's still this wholesome attitude about America before everybody's idealized versions and visions of it get just smashed. So that's where we're finding ourselves. And I think that King does an excellent job at capturing this kind of bubble in time, I think.
Oh, absolutely. That was incredible. Incredible roundup. I think he really does evolve this naturally. Because it would be so ridiculous to just be like, this was the first time we saw this, or, you know, like you can't, but the way that even when you think about his time in Derry in 1958 versus his time when he first gets to Dallas, the idea of how the television communicates these messages on a communal level is just largely different at that point. I mean, I think, what is it, like the late 60s was like the moon landing, the assassinations on all the, as you just mentioned, like I feel like that's when people are like, all right, I'm not going to listen to this on the radio as much anymore. I'm going right onto the television at that point. But I do love that there's a mix here of certain things, because it's, I don't know, just listening to that entire like rundown, it does feel like a new like not an industrial revolution, although I guess you could argue that, but more like a total pop cultural revolution on a wide scale, and just seeing the seeds of certain things. I didn't know about the drive-in stat. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like a year later. Oh my God.
It just like crushes it. And it's just so many clothes, because it's like, well, we can stay. And I mean, the novelty of it, right? Which is understandable, but it's just also interesting because it's like, it's so similar to what we see.
Yeah.
None of these conversations are new.
No.
So it's.
I mean, look, we're nothing if not repetitive as a culture. We don't learn from our mistakes, unfortunately.
Well, time is obdurate.
Yeah,
I don't know. What are we?
Yeah, and like about 20 years after World War II. So like, you know what I mean? Like people are starting, not necessarily entering the workforce, but they're starting to consume pop culture and make money, you know, part-time jobs. You have a lot of late teenagers, maybe some that are born during the war period are in their 20s. So change, you know, almost a generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because what is it? American Graffiti is 62, right? Remember the summer of 62? And you could kind of see in that movie, because it was filmed in the 70s and it led to Happy Days, which is a big commentary on this whole time, or not even a commentary, but just a nostalgic bubble. You do get the sense that it's like it is 62, 63 when that what we considered the bold definition type of the American dream is the cracks are already there. Like it's about to shatter obviously later in the 60s for sure, but there are cracks if you look close enough. And I think King's really good at showing how those are forming, not slowly per se, but you know, at a pace that is alarming if you're paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because Jodie is like this innocence of America. And it's like Dallas is lurking here. And we know it's coming, this really corrupt and kind of ugly city. And we know it's going to come pop this Jodie bubble.
Yeah. I made the joke before we started recording, but you know, the setup of this section is very similar to 1978's Halloween, where you have the Wallace house and then you have the Doyle house, where the Doyle house is everything seems peachy with popcorn and pumpkins and watching scary movies with the babysitter that's wholesome, and in the other house you're getting like sex, drugs, and death, and you know, so it's an interesting vessel for King to kind of or at least format for King to go into. But I think that's a good seg to go into our next section that we like to call Heroes and Villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
So I just hinted at it, but for Heroes and Villains, last week we separated it from location, and we're going to do the same, but we're not going on a road trip per se. We're just going to be, slingshotting back and forth between, you guessed it, Jodie and Dallas, and then Jodie, and then Dallas. It's like the Letterman joke. Uma, Oprah, Dallas, Jodie.
Camera one, camera two.
Yeah. So we are going to be going into those towns and discussing the familiar faces and the historical faces in either town. But let's start off with Jake. Through the past 3 episodes, we've learned a lot about Jake, his troubled past, how that troubled past affects being in the past, and the resourceful ways he passes time. Lots of past. What did you learn about Jake from this section? Jen, let's start with you.
So as I am reading this book for now, I think the 3rd or 4th time, and really thinking critically about Jake as a character, I think I was getting really frustrated with him in this section. And I mean, I think that this is a good flaw. I think he is a very well-defined character, because I think the things that frustrate me about him are things that frustrate me about myself. It's like he is like Jake wanting to save the world and Jake wanting to save Sadie. And I see all of these codependent themes coming out, and what can he do to try to put everything right, and trying to balance all of this is kind of blowing up in his face right now. And he's finding that he can't really do either of these things because he needs to choose. And the part of me that I said it in the last episode, that doesn't care if he saves Kennedy, wants him to stay with Sadie, is stop going to Dallas.
I know.
Just decide what you want to do. And it reminded me, because we were just talking about 9/11, the thing that made me really start thinking about it like this is this whole Cuban Missile Crisis thing. And that's when they get back together. And I just remember, I had a boyfriend who was right out of rehab, and he got out of rehab on September 10th. And we got back together on September 11th because of September 11th. It was a terrible, it turned out fine, but I hope he's happy and wherever he is. But it's this that keeps pulling Jake to Sadie. And I wonder, because the first thing he ever learns about her is that she is in the process of a divorce, and that she has got this kind of secret name, and I wonder if there's a piece of him that is I can save her, you know? And I kept thinking as I was reading this, like, are they really meant to be? Or is this just a piece of Jake? And I don't say, like, Jake and Sadie are still my favorite part of this book. I still love him as a character, but it just makes him a really interesting, flawed character because I think it's a very subtle flaw, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Rachel.
There's some moments I got really frustrated with Jake in relation to Sadie because I feel like sometimes he's even like blaming her for something as some sort of coping mechanism. But I think that ultimately what I learned from this section and what I appreciate about this section is just the struggle that Jake's going through, you know, that struggle between like, okay, making a difference, being the change, you know, he wants to see happen, and finding that balance, and also just the simple pursuit of simple pleasures. Like, do I deserve happiness? Do I want this? Or do I do this like kind of bigger picture thing? And I think that that's something that like, I know I've personally struggled with at various points in my life, is just like, how involved do I want to get in certain causes? How much time? Like, it's not that I don't care, but just like, well, I can do that, or I can do this, or I can, you know, what do I pursue here? And what am I passionate about? And I think that we really start to see that kind of coalesce in this section. And I think that it's just this whole book is just such a fascinating way to explore that idea, because, you know, here Jake has the gift of hindsight, the gift of knowledge, and what will happen if he does nothing, which is something that theoretically doesn't exist, right? Like, we don't have that gift. So it's a lot easier to sometimes put things aside and not get involved in a cause or speak up or whatever, because we don't know what's going to happen. Well, or we choose to believe that we don't know what's going to happen, even though we might actually know what's going to happen. And I was talking to Jen and Dan a little bit about this before, but it reminded, so in Profiles of Courage, which is JFK's book that he wrote, in the foreword, Robert F. Kennedy wrote the foreword, and he talks about, so I just wanted to read a couple quick lines. He said, "Courage is the virtue that President Kennedy most admired. If there's a lesson from his life and from his death, it is that in this world of ours, none of us can afford to be lookers on, the critics standing on the sidelines. Thomas Carlyle wrote, 'The courage we desire and prize is not the courage to die decently, but to live manfully.'" And then he says, "This book is not just stories of the past, but a book of hope and confidence for the future. What happens to the country, to the world, depends on what we do with what others have left us." And I thought that was really interesting, just thinking about the position that Jake is in and what Al has left him with. And, you know, JFK's main, you know, most famous quote, right? "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." And just putting that in this, just literally connecting it to JFK, I think is so fascinating, because this is what I feel Jake's struggling with in this section is, what do I do? What am I going to do? Am I like, how courageous am I? Am I courageous enough to sacrifice Sadie for what I know is going to be affect more people, right? The bigger ripple. But anyways, I know that was a ramble, but it's something I was thinking about a lot, the bigger picture, and also just, what Jake is going through. But I just like to see how Jake kind of, you know, got his groove back and had to go back in time to, I feel like, discover who he truly is. So I'm happy for him in that regard.
Well, it's so interesting, like talking about doing nothing and acting, because this is the section where Jake literally watches Oswald and does nothing about it. And I found myself so many times like, now is your time to act. Like, the past isn't trying to fuck with you right now. Like, go do something now. And so it's interesting how like what Al has left him has almost cursed him into inaction. You know, he can't break out of this prediction he has. And if we think about it, like Sadie and Christy together, it's like everything he knows about Christy, he's transferring on to Sadie. So he's like, well, I know what's going to happen, and this is how I act, even though it is a different person in a different situation. So
it's comfortable, right? You stick with what you know. And I don't know, you even see that old woman at one point tell Jake, right? Like, are you going to do something? And he's like, no.
And I don't blame him. I understand. But it's also like, that's the thing that's frustrating, because that's probably what I would do. And I'm like, do something, step in now, because we know what's going to happen, and he knows what's going to happen if he doesn't act. So
I wish he just went like, back off, hag, and just like went back to his room or
just
something.
pushed her.
Yeah.
No, it is. I think frustration is a good way of capturing this section with Jake's behavior, because it is. On one hand, you're like, man, he has this idyllic, perfect relationship, this great life. He's rising in fame amongst the students, the faculty. Everyone seems to really admire him. He's teaching Sadie the ways of love. Everything seems really nice. And then he kind of just like ghosts her. And there was that frustration where I'm like, I couldn't remember from the first time I read the book. I'm like, when is he going to like just tell her this is what's going on? Instead, it's just he kind of makes excuses, and it gets sad when they talk about how like they never danced quite the same as the first time. And I think The Winter of 62 is just very hard to read, where it's like a go nothing or go nowhere relationship, and then he gets jealous when she's possibly dating other people, and he just kind of like up and leaves. And I wonder if he stayed though with her, if the past would have tried to obliterate him and catch up, or, could he maybe just like back away from his mission? But I think that the past would keep chasing him down. So I don't know that he could have really stepped away from his mission and had a good life.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I was gonna throw out that question to Sadie, but let's do it now. Is Sadie, the past, actually distracting him from this mission and allowing him to, okay, stay here. Fine. Don't do this JFK thing. Stay here. And we can't spoil the ending. Yeah. But knowing that, doesn't it make it that much more impactful if you go with that theme? If that it is the past that's basically saying like, hey, we're giving you happiness.
Yeah, I think
you're not taking it.
When you look at like her maiden name and the connection to the Dunning, like that, it just indicates like this is not a coincidence that you just happen to get with like I think this is the past acting through her as a vessel to prevent him from doing his mission, from changing time.
Yeah, well, and look at Christy too. Like this is the kind of woman that Jake is going to be drawn to because she is someone in need of his help. You know? So I think so. And I mean, for better or worse, I'll have a lot of thoughts about that in our last episode. But I think it might be a little more than a match made in heaven. You know?
I do like that we get hints that there is that voice in the back of his head. Like there's moments where he is kind of questioning this. Like, wait. Yeah, the Dunning connection, like, okay, there's this echo here. Why is this echo here? And what is it trying to say? Or what is it trying to do? So.
Well, it's this section is also really getting into the dark soul of man, right? Or humankind. And I wanted to throw out there, do we feel that Jake, well, in a section where it's all about studying Lee Harvey Oswald and when his dark past is going to really hit the surface, which clearly it does, and literally, do we feel that Jake on that same level has a dark passenger within? I mean, we get a little glimpse. There's a glimpse early on when he's speaking to Silent Mike, where he talks about how he probably looked like Frank Dunning as he was like threatening him. He admits the first thought about, upon getting the call from Sadie that she needs help, and she's, is that he has this mission to fulfill. And so I do wonder if there is this sort of, he also is very, he slaps her and he admits like a slap is a slap. Is there a dark side of Jake? And is that a pointed addition to this section to kind of show that this is why Jake is studying Lee Harvey Oswald? Like, is there a larger discussion of morality that's being discussed through Jake's own feelings?
I definitely think so. And I think I Dark Passenger, I love it because I love Dexter, but I feel like the darkness in him is codependency. I feel like it's this need to control things that are outside of his sphere of reference. And but it also, like, it just makes him human. And if I think about the Jake that we met at the beginning of the novel, like, he almost seems like too good to be true, like this perfect kind of avatar for the everyman, the person we want to be or the person we would want to date. And I think I love this little bit of, like, he really does have to struggle with this stuff because he's a human being. And I think it just makes him a much more engaging and deeper character.
Yeah.
That's funny. I don't think of it as a dark passenger. I never disagree with Jen, but I think I disagree. I don't see it as a dark passenger. Like I don't see it as a bad thing. I think it's just kind of the nature of his mission. And like, because he does know what's going to happen, because he is looking backward, basically, even though he's, existing in this time. It's just, how can you not weigh the bigger picture versus the self? And like, which am I going to prioritize? And what does that say about me? Like, if I choose to go with Sadie, I'm choosing myself, or do I choose to follow Oswald? And it's like, okay, the greater good or my own things, like which do I choose, and what does that say about me? I think that that's pretty natural, and I think that at least is saying and letting us know that he is not committed one way or the other. That momentary hesitation is enough to be like, okay, there's still hope he's going to go one way or the other.
I think there's a lack of innocence, but not just by virtue of him being from the future and lying, but also he has killed a man. And so it's, whether Dark Passenger is symbolic, I would say it's more symbolic within him. But there was also a lot of men his age in society who had killed men during World War II and Korea. How do you kill a man that? Go back, to become a school teacher, right? You don't let that go. And I think there's the escape that he has with Sadie. But I don't know. I go back and forth with it. And it's like, as I mentioned in the previous episodes, I like a man on a mission story. And part of it was I was getting frustrated because I'm like, you're getting too distracted. So it's kind of his fault when he has to cut all these ties, because you're like, well, dude, you set these up knowing that you had to eventually get to Dallas. So it's kind of on you for doing that and bringing all these other people into like your wake.
I do wonder, because he killed Dunning right before he knew Sadie. So it's like he's already proven to himself that he can do this. And let's just pretend that for some reason Sadie came first. Maybe he wouldn't do that, but he's already done this thing. So it's like, okay, I've already committed to this timeline and made this change. I'm not going to go back. Like, I need to finish this.
Yeah.
Whereas
go ahead.
Oh, it's just, maybe if he hadn't killed Dunning and hadn't had that experience, the thought of going after Oswald and doing this act would be too big. And I could see it being a bigger obstacle to overcome. And maybe he would just like go with Sadie and abandon it. But because he's already killed a man. So like, he's going to have to live with that regardless. So why not take out an even bigger threat, right, on a national scale?
Yeah. And I think when he did kill the man, he was living a transient life, right? He didn't ever put down roots in Derry. Whereas now he's established himself in Jodie. He's taken up residence. So it's a very different thing. Whereas I was saying in the past, he felt like a visitor, and now he actually feels like a resident.
Oh, yeah. He says as much, when he says like our town, he has that revelation. Jen.
Yeah, well, okay. So, Dan, in one of the early episodes, we were talking about Jake as a gunslinger. And so at every episode, I'm kind of like tracking his gunslinger journey. And like, I'm just curious, like, do you think he's there yet? Or where do you think he is from Jake to gunslinger, from Jake to Roland?
It's very interesting because I never really thought of the progress, but you're right. There is and it does mirror Roland's story a lot with like Susan. Yeah. And the, distracting from, he's sent there on a mission by a patriarchy, whether it's Roland's father, Stephen, or Al in this case. And he does kind of allow himself to fall in love during the course of it with a blonde woman. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think he's there quite yet. Because I don't know if just killing, I don't think the act of killing is what makes you a gunslinger, right? But it is part of the journey. So I think we're probably going to get to his crossover point. I don't want to spoil, but when there's some confrontations that happen later with a possible damsel in distress type scenario, I think maybe then is a crossover. But I'm not, that's a good way of looking at it. I'll try to pay more attention too, to like that way of like approaching the text from now on.
Well, and if I think back to like when he was talking about the House of Cards, because he says, I want to tell you this now, because that's going to explain why I acted like I did in Jodie, is he's got this whole House of Cards in Dallas that he's trying not to put to like push over. And he has not considered Jodie to be a house of cards at all. And I think this is the section at the very end where it's like, oh, no, you can't exist as two people. You can't, there's no dividing line, or there's no broom like that. It's going to bleed into each other at some point because you're a human being and you're not like, you're not a Terminator, you know?
No. I mean, it's two sides. It's time that's coursing him to stay at Jodie. If we're just going to go with that theory, let's just go with it. Time basically presenting him these opportunities and options to stay versus, I mentioned Dark Passenger because the way Jake carries himself in Dallas, he's constantly, he brings up in this, he's speaking to Al in a way, or like he's able to hear Al, or, he has this sort of thing, which is a lot like, James Remar, Dexter's dad. And so I just imagine him like popping up and, James Remar as Al and just being like, Jake, you need to continue your mission. What are you doing? And so I do feel like he's being fueled by these forces beyond his control. And he's, it's ultimately it's up to him to make these choices, which is just, that's just life in general. But I do wonder, it's fitting that King makes this section, which is ultimately the middle of the book, this sort of crossroads for himself, just to be like, well, who am I going to ultimately listen to? I can't, you can't listen to both because both are pulling you in separate directions. And because he keeps doing that, he's losing his soul in the process because he's just not staying true to either one. I think that's a good, pivot into our next question. We've talked about the fireworks factory, and Flieger, you mentioned the fireworks factory comp from The Simpsons. I think in the first episode, even, or maybe in the second.
Oh, me and Randall mention it all the time.
Yeah. Of just like, hey, are we going to get to this or that? For you right now, what is the fireworks factory? I want to start with you, Flieger, because I know that you just mentioned that you were really into the mission, but you're also loving this love story. Where does your heart still lie?
Yeah, can we call it, I think you phrase it, that prefer chasing Oswald or loving Sadie? And I find the detour of Sadie loving her like really fascinating. It's one of my favorite parts of the book. Yeah. And I didn't want to leave it. And I think that it mirrors what Jake is going through, because I was like, I didn't want it to be over. And once they got to the winter of 62, and it started so beautifully. And then for it just to kind of start to, like, why are we even doing this anymore, was really heartbreaking for me. And I think at that point I was like, I can't stay here anymore. Like, I need to get to Oswald. I need Jake to get out of here. I need him to get to the fireworks factory. So I think the timing is really good. It seems like I recalled from the first read that he was with Sadie for a long time, but it seems like it's pretty brief on the reread here, especially like the part that's, the honeymoon period, at least. I think like the Sadie Hawkins dance, the pound cake, really great sections, but they're fleeting. And so I'm not upset that he has to go chase Oswald, but he does it with 13 months to go is when he really kind of reminds himself, I need to get back into this. Like, I need to get back on the mission. So I prefer the loving Sadie because it's so sweet and enjoyable, but he does have to get back on the mission. So I begrudgingly, time to go to the fireworks factory.
Yeah. Jen.
This is us coming from our opposite sides of the Venn diagram, because I don't care if he, like, for me, the fireworks factory is like next year's play, or like they're going to get married, like that's what I want him to do. And I think like part of my reread on this is like thinking about whether the fireworks factory as an element of your life is real, because I feel like it's so easy to be so focused on this fireworks factory and miss everything that comes before it. It's like that John Lennon quote, like, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans, and I think that this is kind of showing him like, yes, he's got this mission, but does he have to have it, and I don't know. That's easier for me to say. Like, I completely understand where Jake is coming from. And there are some really great quotes in this section about like Sadie being afraid of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And he's like, well, I can say it's not scary because I know what's going to happen, and I can say it's like when you're old, it's like all these old people telling youngsters about dating, like, don't get swept away by this like cute bad dude, It's so, I don't know. But yeah, my fireworks factory is just continued pound cake forever. Or those tiny little fireworks, like the little sparklers that continue day by day by day.
Lady fingers.
Lady fingers, yes.
I want that M80 illegal, buy it out of the back of the van.
Rachel, are you chasing Oswald or are you loving Sadie?
I'm chasing Oswald.
Oh, hell yeah. We've got interesting. So you got two teams here. This is good.
100%. I found myself when he's in the apartment and George de Mortinshield, and he hears him start to mention Walker, and he's up there listening to him with the thing pressed against the ceiling. I was sitting upright and I was all in. This for me is the nerdiest, most exciting thing. And I just kept thinking about the surrealness of going back in time and just seeing somebody from history like this and just watching them and watching it unfold. And to me, I'm getting goosebumps. It's thrilling to me to imagine doing this. And yeah, Sadie's nice and a love story. Good for you, Jake. I'm happy you found love, but also history, you guys.
Yeah.
Although I do have some conflicting feelings about humanizing somebody as awful as Oswald, but that's a bigger conversation in general. But yeah, no, I love the Oswald stuff 100%.
All right, so we've got two chasing Oswalds, one loving Sadie. Well, let's just add another one because I am in loving Sadie mode. And what's funny is, so I literally have a history degree, and yet during all those stretches in the apartment, I just kept thinking of in 1989's The Little Mermaid, when they're about to kiss on the boat.
Yeah.
And, kiss, and everyone's just all right, get on with it. That's how I feel whenever he's debating. Those scenes, the scenes, early on, there's that great moment when all the pie is being thrown around, and you can just imagine it being in an indie comedy or something like that, a postal service playing. And then she's how could you leave all this or whatever? And then it's just, yeah, how can you leave all this? And he's just debating, and he gets to this fucking street that's a cesspool, and I'm just no. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm sorry, Al. And then also, if you think about the positives, it's you could have this wonderful life, with Sadie, and then also have the fortitude of knowing what's going to happen. I think that's a really, for me, that lives this anxious life, where the only thing that I know is for sure is the past, which is why I always continue talking about how I want to go to the 70s and whatnot. Knowing all the stuff that's going to happen, that's fucking great. I'll take that any day. I know that's it's a quote unquote cheap or easy way out, but it's not easy. Life right now, it is easy, but why not? Life is a fucking shit show. I can't. I get worried about touching something and then hitting my clothing. That's enough of a worry that I'm probably going to carry back to the 50s anyway, or the 60s anyway. But I don't also have to worry about, are we going to go into World War III like we're going into right now? I don't even read the news anymore because it just makes me spiral like Jack Torrance. So I am all in. I'm fucking all in on this. I don't have to worry about it. And also just think about that. We get to see Caddyshack in 1980.
Oh God.
1989's Little Mermaid. Just quick. I met Jodie Benson at the Disney 100, the voice actress. So yeah, I got a picture with her. She did the ribbon cutting for the Disney 100 exhibit here.
She's the voice of Ariel, right?
Yeah.
Didn't she sing?
Really cool. I don't think she did the singing, but she was the spoken.
Okay,
I believe.
Hold on, I'll sing the whole movie if you want, because
it was cool because it was right in front of the set for the Little Mermaid, that's the props and everything. So the drawings. But, sorry, I just had to throw that in there.
No, did you ask her if she loved her 11/22/63?
I asked her if she's lived in Chicago, and she's like, "No, I live in LA, but I'm from here, this area."
Yeah,
I was like, "Okay, well, thanks."
What that would be hilarious. I actually do live in Chicago, and then you're just all right, well, see you later.
Beautiful woman, yes.
Yeah, Rachel.
Just while we're on a tangent, but every time they say Sadie Hawkins, I just hear that Reliant K song. I can't get it. And every time you're saying it's Sadie Hawkins dance in my khaki pants. Every time. And sorry, every time I read it, that immediately came into my head.
Yeah, I always think of Lil Abner every single time they say it. So.
I think of Sadie Dunhill.
Well, you're a better person.
But it's interesting because because I agree. In the amount of times I have wished for somebody who just knows what the next 10 years of my life are going to be like to travel back and just tell me, because that will alleviate so much stress. But I think that it's the stress that Jake is drawn to, because he knows everything that's going to happen with Oswald, but he doesn't know anything about Sadie and Jodie. And so that's the thing that keeps pulling him back. But yeah, I'm exactly like you. And it's like my Sons of Anarchy thing. I was like, oh, that's something with the Mayans. Like, I couldn't even really tell you exactly what is happening with Walker and Damore and Shield, because I'm like, okay, it's something with the Mayans. They're going to get back to Jodie at some point.
Like when he's kind of, throwing down history. And he says it's been 25 years since his history lesson. He knows the specifics of with Adlai Stevenson and stuff. I'm like, my man, you should have been a history teacher. Like, I wouldn't be able to pull that shit out.
That's a good idea. And just be doubling your research as you're teaching.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's really smart.
I mean, this is just chaos for him to keep staying in Dallas. I mean, just bad news. Also, I wouldn't be able to do it because that apartment I'd walk in and be like, nope. Like, I'll see you at the Hojo.
Wait, I have to live here?
Yeah, it's not happening. Where do we think right now Jake's alliance is in?
Sadie.
At the end of Sadie? Yeah.
Sadie.
I think he wants it to be Oswald, and I think he's trying to pretend that it still is Oswald, but I think, we'll look at what happens at the very end. He has to make a choice between Damore and Shield between this General Walker thing and Sadie, and he chooses Sadie.
Yeah. See, I don't know if he does choose Sadie, though, because he's lying to her, and he says, everything he says is like, oh, another lie. We just started dating. I'm lying. He hasn't even said his real name to her, So he's living a fantasy, I feel like, with her, and it's fun, but you can't juggle forever.
I think it's a protecting thing, though, because just not sure what'll happen if she does know, or she might leave. Like it's a selfish.
Who's he protecting? Like himself?
Well, himself or her. Yeah. But I don't know. Time might do something weird if she knows. It might pull her into this thing. And
I agree with that. He doesn't want her to get hurt, but it's also unfair. And
he's trying to have his pound cake and eat it too.
Yeah, that's a good
way of putting it.
Literally.
There's got to be a way to say something else. I was thinking about this the entire time. Like, what would I say to basically I mean, you couldn't come up with a better cover that would just
he's a spy. Why can't he just tell her that he's a secret agent?
I know. There's something I feel like, does it feel a little plot armory that he just doesn't say anything, or is it just I mean there is some truth to his character just not being able to come up with a good lie like this, but or maybe even not wanting to create a larger lie. But isn't there a part of you that's also just tell him or tell her,
prove it like the way he does with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah. Pick 3 events that are going to happen and be like, look, I'm going to show you I'm from the future. Lay it out.
Yeah.
Do you want to be with me or not? I think she would be even more interested in him.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, this is why I sing Rolling Stones songs that haven't been written yet.
I love that she asked if he's an alien first.
Me too. Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. She's already on board. She's not leaving him at this point.
Should he have gone full Starman at that point and been like, I will.
He's driving the right car.
Yeah. But also, I feel like that would get annoying after a while, where Sadie'd be like, such and such, he'd be like, no, actually, just mansplaining the future.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Actually, dear.
Actually, Elvis doesn't live past this time. Actually.
That's why she really breaks up with him.
That's a good point. It would be
his knowledge.
Walking spoiler alert.
God, it would probably be annoying.
Yeah.
It's like whenever I make this tick when we watch movies, and Sammy is just like, what? And I'm like, I don't want to say anything, but just know that I made this tick for a reason. And then we've gotten to a format now where I'll, either write something down or I'll just keep it in my mind, and then I'll let the movie finish and she go, okay, what? And then I was like, I kind of called that there was this, X, Y, and Z was going to happen by the end of this movie or whatever. Cause I used to just do it and be like, oh, come on, this is going to, yada, yada, yada. And then, it would drive her nuts because it's just like, okay, great. Yep, you called it. Cool. And I can see that happening with Jake for sure. It's just like, oh, yeah, I've heard this song a million times. And it's like, I want to hold your hand. And it's just well, I haven't. Fuck you. It's just like, oh, this one's kind of played out in my time.
Well, speaking of hand holding, should we talk about some of our other friends and Jodie?
That is a good point. We should. Let's move on. So let's go to this little slice of Texas that I love. Deke Simmons. pretty much the father figure to both Jake and Sadie. And he's the one that convinces George to do the little jamboree here that we get to see. How do we feel about Deke now, and especially that he's stepped out of Mimi's shadow? Jen?
I love him. I think I liked him before, mostly just because he seemed like a real person, but I just love him so much in this section because he's just like a father figure, but like a not judgmental father figure, like coming from a very small town in Texas in the 50s or the 60s, he could have been a real asshole. And I think he's not. He's just so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's so endearing and compassionate, just the fact that like, he knows what Mimi was going through and like went through with the whole thing anyway. Like he was willing to go through that experience and put himself in that situation for love. And that's like so sweet and beautiful. And he's also really understanding about George. And especially as it goes through this section, he gives him, I think, a little bit more like leeway than some of the other characters and gives him the benefit of the doubt a little bit more. He sees something, I think, in Jake.
Yeah. And I think him leaving the school has a lot to do with Jake leaving, because he would, like you said, he gave him like kind of a long leash that Jake's not going to get again. And I do think it is funny, the kind of how he gets him to participate in the jamboree is almost like, well, too bad, and maybe we'll just give it to this guy. And Jake's like, that guy will fuck it up. Like,
I guess you don't want any dessert.
He knows how to manipulate him.
And it's so funny because he can so clearly see what he's doing and he falls for it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Candlewood Inn stuff is very interesting. How it's like, well, mister, if you got to do your business, here's a good location. It's funny what they're actually talking about, And,
King's really good at creating just great side characters, side pieces but like naturally and with
side
action
pieces.
Yeah, like I like it's like the side piece of just like I just think of like in a video game or something like that. It's like, oh, who do you have with you? Is that a bad thing?
Like someone you have an affair with, like
your girl on the side.
Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I meant like more like a sidekick. All right.
Does Jake have two cell phones?
Yeah. No, not like that.
With many side pieces.
You open it with 69, all right. Well, I guess I'll lean more into Chuck Norris sidekick.
I think he's good at creating sidekicks.
Definitely a Brandis.
And he is definitely a Brandis. But what I love about the way he's able to weave these characters in is that it never feels too obvious. It's this sort of natural woven magic that comes in all the time. Like he's been doing this since like Salem's Lot, with Matt or even the Doc. And I think that the way Deke is thrown in here and how he seems to be this sort of conduit to creating more happiness for Jake, but also the support system, it's really strong. And it's not, and when you think about it, Deke's like hardly in it. Like he pops in and pops out, but he's always useful in that way without feeling like King's making him as this sort of bridge to the next story. It does feel very natural. And I think that's a strong suit, not just of King and just the story in general.
And I like that he has strong roots in Jodie that are not just Sadie, like I like that this is so like he is really excited to come back and have dinner with just Deke and Ellen Doherty, because he just likes them.
Yeah. And then speaking of Doherty, what do we think about her? So she's, the principal who replaces Deke after he retires. At first she loves Jake and then, kind of is on the fence to put it mildly. This is a question I had also, Jen, but she does feel kind of like a Mimi replacement. And I know, not spoiling the show that we're going to be covering in January, but the show basically combines the characters, if I recall. Doesn't it feel like that could have happened here?
Like, this is like a Nadine / Rita combination kind of thing,
Perfect. Yeah.
And I really like Ellen. I like, as much as it does kind of frustrate me, I like that she is so protective of Sadie and just kind of really turns on Jake because you're right, Dan, he's lying to her and they don't know he could be planning to like blow up the school or something like or maybe he's the one that's planning to assassinate the president. They don't know,
Yeah, it could be a criminal with children who, for all they know, like.
Well, she brings that up.
Kids,
yeah. Well, and we're coming from a generation where like you have to take that extremely seriously, and to think about just leaving a stranger that you know is lying and you don't know why alone with kids. Like I think that's justified, but I do think she feels a little bit like a continuation of Mimi in a way that I like. It makes me feel like I get a little bit more Mimi, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if it would have been more impacting if it was Mimi this entire time and she's the one that turns on him.
Yeah, but I think Deke, I don't know that Deke's presence would allow Mimi to turn on Jake, because I think they have so much shared memories and good times together. But I think by getting rid of Mimi and having someone replace her that Deke has no influence over, you know what I mean? Like Ellen is taking over power from Deke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
He's kind of like, he's entering his, golden years at this point.
Yeah.
Well, and if we're looking at this as a codependent parallel, like Mimi's death offers Jake a way to help, and step in and fill a role and a needed thing.
Well, that's how Sadie gets her job too, right? Like,
true.
You got to have a reason for Sadie's like slightly delayed entry into the, the story of Mimi.
Yeah.
Retiring.
Do we side with her on being kind of a schmuck to Jake?
Yeah, I think so.
From her perspective, she's not doing anything wrong. Like she's
looking out for her girl.
Yeah, she is. She's also not calling the police either. Like she could go all the way and like kick him out of town. Like I like that she's just kind of keeping her eye out. You know?
Yeah. And I did like I like the prayer that Sadie wishes for reconciliation between them. I thought that's a very sweet part. But
yeah.
She offers a good counter too, I think, because we're getting all this from Jake's perspective and we know the bigger picture, but it also kind of grounds it in reality a little bit more in terms of like this time, because just seeing it from her perspective, and it just allows us to realize like, yeah, Jake is a visitor in this world. And yeah, how would we think about this? Because we're seeing it from one side and sometimes it's hard to view it from the other, I think. And so she's kind of another way into that. It also, I love, Mike, you mentioned Gilmore Girls on one of the episodes. It does feel very like Stars Hollow.
Yes.
And just like those kind of characters that it's like you go through ups and downs with these people in your life. And so it's nice to see that like, yeah, he does have relationships and yeah, they're not always great and that's okay. They can still be people that he cares about.
And that's the people in this version of Stars Hollow are not stupid, because I feel like there's like this kind of naive quality to this town, and I can come here and I can be anybody and I can start over. And it's just this like, well, you can't really, like you still carry your past with you,
These are real humans. Like these are real people.
Right,
like,
exactly. They're real people, yeah.
Yeah, she's a real Emily Gilmore. In a way. she's giving Emily Gilmore.
That's a great thing to give. I love it.
Yeah. Well, not all. Just like, we just discussed here with Ellen, not all's gravy in Jodie, and things do take a turn. And it certainly starts with what happens with Mike Koslaw and Bobby Jill, and especially Vince Knowles. There's a car wreck. Koslaw is planning to major in theater. Bobby Jill is injured in the car crash that kills Vince Knowles. Their lives are certainly changed from this, and it's a ripple effect that kind of allows to elevate some of the other things that have been boiling underneath the surface, I think, for a lot of characters. Do we think these kids feel real, or are they too good to be true? I actually think the car crash is a very realistic thing. I lost my swimming partner in middle school when he was in high school, and he was he ended up being like the bee's knees, and his girlfriend was they were the star couple, and they were on their way up to Orlando for something, and they got into a car crash and died, and it was a huge like, and it was especially in high school, it's like we all feel infinite, or at least most people did. I didn't. I was waiting for hell, but the idea of like kids dying at that point, it was a startling revelation. I feel like it is kind of like sadly an American, like a tradition for
James
a lot of high schoolers.
It's like a James Dean kind of thing too.
Yeah.
It's like a rite of passage in a sick way. It's like I had that in my school. I think everyone does. It's just a numbers game at a certain point. Sad, but it's when you have that much hormones going through your system, that little inexperience, and you get the wheels to the road. It's.
I think it's also a good reminder for Jake too, because when he catches them like drinking and gives them this whole speech like don't fuck up your life, and I think he kind of ultimately leaves that conversation feeling like, all right, that meant something, and it did mean something, and like he like changed the outcome of like where potentially they were headed, and like maybe he did, but also like you can't control everything, and like bad things can still happen, and that's just. how it
would
is.
a teacher of that time period have reported them for a greater punishment if they caught them with booze? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's it, you're suspended, and maybe that alters their path in life. Whereas Jake was a little more like, all right, knock it off, get out of here.
Well, and that is an example of him intervening right now instead of waiting for the house of cards to the very, like the perfect moment. Because there's another story where he reads Bobby Jill's essay when she is in his continuing education class, and he goes back, and this is the Frank Dunning family. This is the thing that he tries to stop. And it's just interesting to see him reacting in real time as a human in Jodie in a way that he will not allow himself to do. Because part of what I don't want to skip ahead to the Dallas stuff, but part of me was like, what if you did call the cops on Oswald right now? Would that change history? And this is an example of him reacting in the moment and making a lasting change in at least Jim LeDoux's life because he stops drinking. And would that have happened if he had just been an observer? He's not allowing himself to be an observer in Jodie.
Are you a fan of the Coslaw?
I love them. I do feel like they feel like a little bit of the kind of magic nostalgia, so I don't like it, but this is a little bit of a, like Rachel, you said, like grounding in reality. Like this is a town that bad things do still happen in.
Does this kind of feel like Lane's storyline a little bit in Gilmore Girls, where it's just like all of a sudden we're like talking about her rocker boyfriend who's an idiot, and you're like,
oh yeah,
all right,
let's go.
Triplets.
Let's get back to college or with Lorelai. Like, do they feel sort of like old hat at that point? Because early on it's very interesting with the budding that's going on, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like, we've been here, we put on the production.
Yeah.
Well, it almost feels like they go from being their own characters to being characters in Jake's story. And I'm not complaining about that because I understand why this section is about Jake and how he's kind of, reacting to everything. But I think they do lose a little bit of their own autonomy in this section,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the belle of the ball, as they say, probably around this time. Sadie Dunhill. Lots of stuff in this section. We're going to be going back to her later on a little bit, but they start. I'm using your notes here, Jen. They start. This is a perfect example why she's the recap ruler. She and Jake finally start fucking around and fall in love. She's coming from an abusive marriage. He teaches her about sex and what a healthy relationship should feel like. And given the dialogue alone, and this is from my parts, I think given the dialogue alone, the Kazdan dialogue that I talked about last week, I think they're truly irresistible. And I think that King's love for these sections is just absolutely contagious, at least to me. What do you all think? Are you still, we talked about some of us are loving Sadie, some of us are chasing Oswald, but ultimately I think we all can agree that this is a relationship for the stars, right?
Yeah, I'm like Jake. 100%. I can do both. I can love Sadie and chase Oswald.
Yeah, sure.
Right, wow.
It's
fucking
like
Jason Bourne over here.
It's really sexy, but it's funny. Some of the, save it for pound cake, but talk about like the grip of like what she grips him with her body, and it's just like it gets very explicit. And one thing that's funny too is like we talked about it last week, but they mention height so much in this book about like tall men, tall women, watching a tall naked woman walk around, and it just
as a short person, it makes me feel very like
I know. I'm like, hey, 5'2" women want some love too.
Well, don't worry when you come here in a couple of weeks, Jen and Sammy will you all be your own thing. We'll
be the little
especially when you
little munchkin
stack squad.
Yeah. Mike and Justin and I will put stuff on top of the refrigerator.
Yeah. It'll be like, hey, why don't you go make grab the cocoa at the top? But no,
I'm dying to see you stand next to Justin, Rachel, because that was very shocking for me the first time I saw how tall he is.
He's fucking Michael Myers from 2007, like the Rob Zombie one. We always joke that in the winter when he's like wearing his coat, he looks like the Shape walking around. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about this. Not too much because we are going to be discussing the Clayton's storyline a little bit, but this is essentially we get to see the good times and the bad. And would you say that this is kind of mirroring what happens with Christy? He's kind of experiencing echoes of his own past. Jen?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder, and again, we're going to do a character corner on Sadie where I'm going to go all in on all of this. But like, it does like make me wonder how much of their love story is truly meant to be, or if they are kind of working out their past relationships and kind of healing each other with this. And I don't say that as a bad thing, but I think the first time I read this, I was like, oh, perfect couple meant to be. He is a man from another time who just happened to be born at the wrong time as his soulmate. And I don't know if I necessarily see it that way this time. I think they just happen to really have what the other person needs at the time. And it's just such a gorgeous love story. I do think this is his best love story. And even the ups and downs, like they're both so human and so flawed, but still love each other. It's just
Rachel.
Yeah, it's those ups and downs that make it feel real to me, because it would be like too cheesy and unbelievable if it was just, hearts and little birdies and things like that all the time, right? And so it's that up and down that actually makes me appreciate it and love Sadie, that she's strong enough to stand up for herself. And even when they're working through things, I like how their conversations are and how there's that respect there. But sometimes, it feels very authentic. And I think that's just what I love about it so much.
Well, that's what we talked about last week, is the idea that, if that first two sections that we covered were about, the Opie and Andy, or the Andy and Opie part of the 50s, and then last week was just, discussing the gritty underbelly of that era. I think King does a really good job in showing the two sides of love. And it reminds me of this quote from Vanilla Sky, Jason Lee, King's Dominion, the Dreamcatcher. He says to Tom Cruise, no King's Dominion with Tom Cruise, sadly.
Not yet.
We'll have to do an episode on Cruise and how he could fit into the King's Dominion. But he tells Tom Cruise, just remember, the sweet is never as sweet without the sour. And I know the sour. So I think as tough it is to watch, I think we do need to see Jake experience the sour. Are these sections incredibly hard to read, though?
Yeah, they're hard to read. And, I've talked about some of my own personal stuff, but it feels so real. It feels like things that King has either heard about firsthand or experienced firsthand. And just the section where he sees Christy and not her, and he just gets
calls
so
her that
angry. Yeah, it's so hard to read, but it tells me so much about where they both are too, and that they do happen to be right for each other at the time.
Yeah, it's very sexy too. Like, I mean, it's brings you back to the time of like when you're first exploring, and you kind of get to relive it through Sadie's eyes. And Jake comments on like the sex education of the time period was very minimal, and that all she ever really learned was her mom teaching her about the diaphragm and saying a prayer, and that's about the extent of her education. So seeing
let me get my soapbox out. Hold on.
Yeah, no, but even like, I mean, for us, it was, even in modern times, sex education is kind of weak. We would see like cross sections of a uterus and be like, and that's sex. Whereas I guess now kids, I'm sure that they see actual sex on their phones way too early without any sort of like guidance. But you can just imagine how naive
that's a whole
Sadie is.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is so sweet to watch him kind of teach her, and how like sweet they are together. Like, he's never condescending. Like, they just really care about each other and love each other in a way that is almost too good to be true, except that, it's not. It does have these dark moments.
Well, in that respect, is it fair for Jake to date Sadie, or do we care about the moral principles behind it?
I mean, I feel like I'm getting down on Jake, and I'm getting frustrated with him in this section, because in the long term, no, it is not fair for him to keep lying to her. But if I look at what Sadie needs in this moment, like, she needs someone who will have sex with her and like make her feel desired and loved, and kind of teach her what love should feel like. And, that doesn't necessarily have to last forever to get what she needs out of it. And maybe she does need to be with a man who's lying to her, so that she knows, no, I'm not going to do this again. I cannot, like, so she knows she like has more, I don't want to say practice, but like she keeps standing up for herself, because she realizes that she is more important than just this perfect looking love story,
Yeah.
So, I mean, no, but maybe sometimes the medicine is bitter,
Yeah. Well, anyone else? Any thoughts on that? Or should we
I mean, I've got a million more thoughts on it, but
well, let's save that for sure.
Character corner.
Because I just got a telegram actually, and it says that there's some stuff happening in Dallas. So I know we're having all fun here, but let's make our lives miserable and dash over to Dallas. Now, before
Speak for yourself. I
know. Some of us love it. But look,
what a weird telegram. Like some stuff happened in Dallas.
Yeah.
Stop.
Well, it was very vague. And I told the person that's running the telegram system to just keep it vague. I don't need to be on the
charged by the letter, so
they do actually. And I'm saving every dime I can. But so before we go into the familiar faces, the historical faces here, specifically Oswald, I really wanted to pick up on where we left off as it relates to King approaching these historical figures. This is something I teased way back in the first episode. So I wanted to go back to my notes, thanks again to our Losers Club historian, Brian Burnett. And I looked back at a few of King's interviews. And Flieger, why don't you read this first passage? This is from his interview with Tom Perrotta at the JFK Library upon the release of the book.
Yeah, Tom Perrotta, for context, he's the guy who wrote The Leftovers.
Yeah.
Which is
incredible writer.
Series. Yeah. But so I watched this full interview, so I'm going to read this section and then share a few thoughts on the other things that King said. But so King says, the person I really wanted to try and bring forward and kind of delineate was Lee Oswald. Because he was the change agent, not Kennedy. That's the pity of it. Because Kennedy, up until that point, had been the real change in American politics and the way that we did business up to that time. The difference was Eisenhower showing up at the inauguration in a silk top hat and a morning coat. Kennedy's bareheaded here, and he's just got this beautiful thick head of hair, and you could tell it was the changing of the guard. Things weren't going to change except for this guy with a rifle. So I was interested in trying to make him exist as a character. And I think that's a very interesting point, because it is, everyone thinks Kennedy, but by focusing in on Oswald, I think that's a very creative and smart way to kind of approach the writing of this novel. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think?
Well, yeah, from an accessibility thing too. Like, how is he going to follow around Kennedy all the time?
Yeah.
And
he became a congressional aid or something.
Or be like Chucky, infiltrate the White House.
But kind of staying on the historical aspect and trying to keep it real versus, keeping this fictional story going. It's definitely not an easy feat. And I think, what I love about this interview and another one coming up is that, Perrotta's very quick to point out how that's not an easy feat. And King agrees. And he digresses a little bit on the process. Rachel, why don't you read the next part?
Sure. He says, but I had my own holy shit minute when I thought to myself, I want to put Jake in a position where he can see Oswald and hear Oswald. Then I realized that when he's in Fort Worth, he and his wife spoke nothing but Russian because Lee met her in Russia and she had no English. And he had no interest in letting her learn English because he wanted her under his thumb. So not only is Jake in a different house, but they're speaking a different language. And I did have this sort of reaction that I'd gotten into this. So I started to look into bugging equipment. My friend Russ helped me and we found out what was possible and what wasn't. He gave me the information and then I did what they pay us the big bucks for, which is to try to make something real out of that. And I did. I had some fun with it.
And how real? Well, King adds, step one is you get the information by hook or by crook. I had Russ to help me with some. And of course, I have access to the computer and stuff. Then you just kind of make stuff up that'll make it work. And King then admitted to Errol Morris in another interview, he just said I had some fun with it, but he says to Morris, "Oh God, that was hard. The guy and his wife spoke Russian the whole time. That was the worst part of writing the book. I hope it's not too boring." And Morris pressed him on it because he actually really liked this aspect of the book, and he wanted to know why it was so hard. And King goes, "Well, there was certain information I wanted to put across about how they got along and about Lee Harvey Oswald's mother, who was just a harridan, and his feelings about socialism, how they changed, how he felt about Cuba. And I thought, the guy lives across the street. I don't want a lot of technical hugger-mugger," which is, I've never heard of that before, but great. I want to use it now. I don't really want to get bogged down in a lot of detail, And so, he and Morris go further into the danger of these details. But Jen, why don't you take the next part?
Okay. Well, I never tried anything like that before, and I'm not sure that I would ever want to try again because, man, it was too much like work. I mean, I've done stuff that's used reality as a base before. In this case, that's why I stopped the first time I tried it. I was teaching school, and it was 1971, and I was in the teacher's room, and people were talking about the Kennedy assassination. The 20-second would roll around, and people would talk and write about the assassination and stuff. I guess somebody must have said, what would it have been like if Kennedy had lived? And I thought to myself, I'd love to write a story about that. But there are so many real people, and there's the whole idea of trying to integrate the past and make it real. And it just seemed too big to me that time. And it was big. I've still got a room full of research materials. Then once you start, the other trick is to not make it something that's boring, that's all history. Look what I read, and here are these interesting facts. I didn't want to do a James Michener thing. I love James Michener.
Oh,
but
do you?
That's also why, yeah, I do. I haven't read him in a long time.
Because he does like generational stories, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah, super long, like historical fiction. But that is the reason I did not read this right away, is because I thought it was going to be too history dense, you know?
Well, do these sentiments come off in the writing? I mean, I personally could feel the wind in his sails really lifting every time he left Dallas. And I'd argue that really works for the story because I guess... Sorry, Rachel, we want to hate Dallas like Jake, but am I alone in this, or am I just like really playing armchair psychiatrist Fleer?
Well, what's interesting is during the Tom Perrotta interview, he says specifically that he wanted to avoid nostalgia. He didn't want to put Vaseline on the lens, but there is a lot of nostalgia here, right? I mean, there's so much, and I think you can't go back in time and not talk about that. And there's a couple other points too that were interesting. In the Tom Perrotta interview, he mentions a lot of music, and he talks about the Beatles coming and how Kennedy never got to hear a Beatles song. Yeah. And he thinks that would have been very interesting. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of a strange idea to think of it. But he also mentions Honky Tonk Woman in the conversation. And then he also says Oswald had Marina under his thumb, which is like the under my thumb Rolling Stones. So even like subconsciously, he's dropping rock and roll into it, and which I think speaks to kind of that nostalgia, maybe for a different time period, but nonetheless.
I think that point of view is really important because I think it really does show just how embedded he got in that, you know, like just how I think of like when we're working and we all wear different hats at work sometimes and we all have slacks, but at some point, like 6 hours will go by and you realize, oh my God, like I was just really focusing on this. I have 4 other messages on Slack. I have all these other things. And all your reality is in those 6 hours is just that job. Just that task. Like you're going to be looking at the data and putting into a sheet, or you're going to be writing something and making sure that you're doing the research on that. I really do get the sense from these interviews that like King just was in another world during this time. And you get, I think when you look at the stuff in Dallas, you are getting a sort of different King because it is a different King. Like he's never really done this before. And I don't know if it was just me that was inferring that, but like, do you get that when you were reading it also, Jen?
I do, yeah. And I think, there's an ethical responsibility he feels like he has to especially talk about characters that are being abused, that, did exist and are, real to get it right, and I think that it doesn't, I don't want to say it bogs it down for me, but it feels a little more careful than I think some of the stuff in Jodie that just feels like we've said, it feels like he's flying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he calls himself in the interview too. He says, I'm a sentimental author, not a nostalgic one. And he warns others not to get drowned, but to embrace the truth and to tell the truth. So I think that's a good balance that he's at least gotten in his approach. And one final note I think that's great is because the interview that I was watched, it's on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing, but it's at the Kennedy Library. And Tom asked him, would you like to have a library for you one day? And King, I think humbly says, yeah, I would, but I would fill it not with my own books. Like I would fill it with others. And I think that's like a really great answer.
Yeah. That's a good one.
That's why we love him.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to throw one more thing though, because I know, Team Oswald over here. I know you like studying the stuff, but do you feel like you also are like King here, where you still do get excited whenever you do go back to Jodie, or are you now at that point like no, Jodie, Sadie?
I like Jodie. I like the balance, but I find like this really fascinating just because I'm really like intrigued by this whole time period, and especially like what comes after this. So like just personally, I'm really interested in it. And I think this is just such an interesting way to explore it, because I do think that like he's hyper aware of what he's doing in these, and he's not trying to exaggerate too much. Or I think it does feel like he's, like Jen was saying, like very conscious of how he's portraying this character and the situation. And I think obviously King knows like the kind of feedback that he would get, and doesn't want to deal with a lot of those ethical issues about, you know, romanticizing somebody like this in American history and trying to portray him in a really authentic way, but also like having to fictionalize some of that stuff. And that's really difficult, because obviously this is fictionalized, because, you know, you can have all the notes in like in Al's notebook. Lee was here, then he did this, then he met this person, but like you have to fill in all those gaps, and that's a hard thing to do and still remain authentic and respectful at the same time. So it's a good balance. So I do like, I wouldn't want the whole book to be that, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The Jodie helps make it a novel, makes it a Stephen King book. I feel like that stuff is more King. But that's why I love this book, because it's a little bit of both for me. Like for me personally, it's blending those interests for myself in a way that it's like, well, of course, like one of my favorite authors is talking about history. Like I am all in, but I would not be as interested in if King's like, oh, I'm just going to write an authentic, you know, history book. Like,
I think he'd agree with you based on the sentiments. I do think he'd be like, no way, I'm not doing that.
He felt the weight of Dallas a lot, I think.
Yeah. And I think that was important for the story. Flieger, I know that, you know, as history is the backbone of your interests, was this something that you were like kind of leaning more into, or did you, what are your thoughts on all this in this section? Because I know this is usually the section that people talk about when they talk about 11/22/63. They always say, it's kind of hard. There's a lot of, you know, fluff about the history and stuff. Do you like the mix here?
I mean, I remember the first time reading it, I was so into the Sadie stuff.
Yeah.
And I still am on this reread. But yeah, I was like, I want to get the Fireworks Factory. And I think because I've been watching a lot of like documentaries about the Kennedy assassination in preparation for this. So this week I watched one called From JFK to 9/11, Everything is a Rich Man's, I forget the exact full title, but it's on YouTube. It's pretty wild because it gets into essentially like societies, secret societies, Masons, going through the history.
I was going to jokingly say the Illuminati, but I guess
But it really does. And it laid out for me because like, you know, it's like, was it the CIA? Was it the mafia? Was it the politicians? And it kind of shows how they all kind of work together to get rid of Kennedy. And some of the stuff later, you know, gets a little too conspiracy theory rabbit holes, but it really laid out just like this. Kennedy had created so many enemies for himself, and they all kind of tacitly, if not openly with each other, agreed like he's got to go. So I really wanted to get into finding out about Oswald and like the George, was it Martian child? I'm not exactly sure how to say his name.
Mohrenschildt, de Mohrenschildt, I think.
De Mohrenschildt, yeah.
De Mohrenschildt.
That's how Arnold Schwarzenegger would say it.
Yeah, it was like Belarusian, which wasn't even fully a country at the time, so it was like part of Russia. But yeah, so he has like a mix of a German Russian accent, and I just really wanted to get like let's see like what was Oswald's role in this, and I do recommend some of those documentaries. It's pretty interesting stuff and lays it out pretty well.
I mean, that's the problem with, I mean, even when looking at how to approach this section just for our podcast, it was like I did have to kind of stop, and it's like the OCD guy hanging up a portrait and me basically, and just being like, oh, it's not straight. No, I don't think it's straight enough. I don't think the level's good. Let me try this again. It was really hard for me to figure out how we want to approach this, because do we treat these characters like we do in Jodie? You know, like are we going to like talk about Lee Harvey Oswald or Margaret Oswald or, you know, or certainly Marina Oswald in the same context of like Sadie or Deke or Coslaw? Like, is it fair to do that? I think that the best way to look at it is just, what did King put to paper here? And I think that we know that there's a lot of realism in history here, but we also know that he had to create his own sort of realistic sandbox, and it might have been small, but I think we can do that ourselves. So, you know, for looking at these characters, I think we can, and you can agree or disagree with me here. let's just stick with what we see in the story. I don't want to look into like the broader historical context. I think we could probably, Flieger, I tasked you to kind of give us a little more definition on who these real life folks are, but I just don't want to go into thing and everyone be like,
we'll save that for future episodes.
Well, morally, we don't know about, this and that and stuff, but but what we're seeing on the page, if King is objectively saying that this is a straight, we're doing the Occam's razor for Lee Harvey Oswald, is this is this one shooter, let's do that with these characters. So
and I agree, and I think just to put a pin on that for later discussion, future episodes, it is interesting to see that these are real life characters and how they are involved in this greater context, and especially like Marina just being like abused by Lee. It's her suffering that was how it was in real life. So it is like, you have the Sadie, and who's like this fictionalized version, and then you have like a real person here, and I think it's very interesting. And I do find myself getting frustrated with all the conspiracies because I'm like, I just want to know the truth of what happened. Yeah. So I'm willing to go with King on this journey of like, okay, at least this is somebody's interpretation of it, some solid ground to stand on. Yeah, I think so too. So Lee Harvey Oswald, let's talk about him as he exists in this story. King paints a pretty, I guess just not a brutal portrait, but just a fair portrait. I think it's this, he's emotionally abused by his mother, but he's also physically and emotionally abusive to his own wife. He's got this sort of dichotomy that's within him. He's very jealous. At this point, at least we know it, he hasn't killed anyone yet. Is there any sympathy we have for this character?
No.
I think. Go ahead.
I was saying, he's like a mark, I think, and I think that's what I believe George was kind of grooming him, or at least handling him. But he just seems like he's slave to his emotions. He has violent outbursts. His mom clearly is not a good person and didn't raise him very well. So he seems like he'd be annoying. When the kid tries to sell him the newspaper and he lectures him on communism, Das Kapital. It's like, come on, this kid's just trying to make money with the side hustle here, Yeah.
This guy, he's pathetic. He's insecure. He's a reply guy. Like, this guy is.
You say a reply guy?
Yeah. Like,
totally.
This isn't actually, but actually, you're an idiot who is like easily swayed and manipulated because you can't really think for yourself and are just frustrated how your own life has turned out. Like, he's the worst. But like, and he's not. I think that's also something that is really fascinating about this whole story is just how like pathetic and normal he is. Like, there's nothing really special about him. Yeah. And I think that's we've talked about that, right? The tragedy of the balance, right? It's not a fair balance to trade JFK for this guy. And I don't have sympathy for him, but I do think that he's presented, I don't know, properly, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, King agrees with you there. He calls him a bore.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. I think that's, you see just, this is the guy. Like, this is the guy that we've talked about all along, which I think is, whether or not it's as historically accurate as it could be, that's up, for debate. And I'm sure historians would jump at the chance to do that because that's what historians love to do. But I think as it stands here, it's a fair portrait of a boring man. And I think that's a really good distinction to show when you look at just how devastating this situation is. Jen, what about you?
Yeah, and I wrote how much sympathy. I used the word sympathy in the outline, and I think because I do have some sympathy for him, mostly because I have a mother-in-law like his mother, and I know what that can do to someone if you're growing up in that household for your entire life. But yeah, he is, and that doesn't excuse anything he does. Like, we can feel sympathy for him and also think that he is a piece of shit and that he's doing a lot of horrible things, and he's perpetuating a cycle of abuse also. And I think maybe instead of maybe I would rewrite this question now and say, is he still reachable? Because I think what I think is really interesting about this section is we are watching a monster grow into someone who's going to change the world? And is there a way for Jake to make a lasting change that doesn't involve allowing him to be a monster every day and then stopping him at one precise moment, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's what I do think is interesting, is it's not like an overnight thing. It's not like he came back for Rush and was like, all right, fuck this, I'm going to kill JFK. Right. You know, like that's not, like, I appreciate that we see the steps, the escalation, right? And how he got to this point. And that feels very real, right? And it's like, at what point could somebody have stepped in and changed this?
Is this Jake like throwing the bottle over the fence and changing Ledoux's life? Yeah. Could something like that change his life?
Because I don't think that this had to be the outcome for Oswald. I will say that. So it's not sympathy, but yes, I do think that he was quote unquote savable, but that's not what happened.
Let's talk about the other Oswalds then, because, you know, they're certainly almost more of a character than Lee. Yeah. I mean, Marina almost feels like more of a character than anyone. I mean, he really does focus on Marina here. I guess the big question, this is what you had, Jen, is, you know, how do we feel about Jake not intervening when Lee beats her? I mean, this is the trouble about a stakeout, right? You know, these are the problems that Richard Dreyfuss and Emilio Estevez have in both movies, is that they have to wait for the right time to approach. But do you look down at Jake for this, Flieger?
Well, I did, because I've been watching the Planet Earth series.
Yeah, I was going to say wildlife photographers do this all the time,
exactly,
right?
You're reading my mind. It's, you know, you watch the cheetah take down a gazelle and you can't intervene because it's going to affect things, and you want to be like, oh, I want to keep it going. But that's sort of like the nature of it. And if he does intervene, I mean, who knows what path that's going to put Lee on. So he's very conscious of this butterfly effect. But I also think it's in there, one, to help vilify Lee for the audience, but also to show how helpless Jake feels and that he has to endure this and question his own morality of not just intervening then, but what are the morals of him intervening and killing Lee possibly?
Well, and like we see so many, like Marina's circle, right? And how important that circle is to this story. So it's like important to have those people kind of flocking around her because apparently, you know, she's got this charismatic personality and is a little bit of a babe. So there's all these men kind of interested in her for various reasons. And that becomes, I mean, that's important. And if he stepped in or something, like maybe those people don't get involved or some, you know, for whatever reason, for better or for worse. And Marina is also interesting to me because we find out she's pregnant again. And that's something that isn't in Al's notebook, right? And that's something that Jake wasn't expecting. And I think that's just such a fascinating way to kind of put a little nugget, like you can never truly know the full story. You can never plan for everything. You can never trust everything that's written. It's just that little kind of bit of information that, you know, he didn't know before. And just kind of that way that like, yeah, King's laying all of this stuff out, but at the same time, we're never truly going to know what went on. We're never truly going to know everything about these people. So
yeah,
life finds a way.
Life finds a way. Yeah. Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Margaret Oswald.
Oh,
is this do you think King saw little bits of this past and was like, oh, I know how to write this character?
Oh yeah, he just dusted off his Mrs. White, Mrs. Carmody stuff, you know? Yeah, just like the sneer she has when she walks away and talking about like how she feels younger because, you know, she has been cruel to everyone.
Yeah. In the audiobook, it's funny because she's like scolding Marina for feeding the baby yogurt. She's like, no more of this yogurt. It's like they put the real twang on the accent. But yeah, like I just think she feels better about herself. Like she walks away from these confrontations being like, wow, that was nice. Where everyone else is just like, Jesus.
Yeah. She's a nightmare. Just an
exhausting.
Yeah. I mean, when we see Mrs. White and Carrie, we kind of even sympathize more with Carrie White. Just do any of that for Lee Harvey Oswald, though.
Yeah, I think for me it does. Yeah, it's because just imagining growing up with this woman, you know, and it's interesting because we had seen her in an earlier scene almost seeming to like praise Lee before while he was still in Russia to his brother, and for him to come back. And so we just see it's just about causing this pain. You know, I might diagnose her with a medical condition or something. Like she wants to poke, and that's what she feeds on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
but also to see how this creates, like, this is not just a small thing. It's not just this guy's going to suffer. It's that this is a piece of the puzzle that goes into changing the entire world. And how many moms are out there like her, and how many sons have they been traumatizing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think she's Pennywise?
Man, what if she walked towards the bus and like all of a sudden she has an
Just
orange
like,
pom-pom on her buttons or something? I would love
she
that.
does feast on negative emotions, but
Yeah.
She does.
nothing magical about her.
What
She's early True Knot.
what would, you know, we talked about the inclusion of Richie and Bev in the second episode, but like how fast would you throw in the book if it was hinted that Marguerite Oswald was a form of Pennywise, like Dandelo or something?
I
Like, all right.
I would have been like, I would have been upset.
Just the Oswald estate, if there is one, is just like, Marguerite was not Pennywise. And we'd have this like insane debate on Twitter or whatever. Anyway, let's talk about some other historical figures. The Arnold himself, George de Mohrenschildt. So he, you know, another real life figure. Flieger, do you have any like info deep on him a little bit? Just because this is a figure that I think I only knew from this fucking story.
Yeah, so. I read a Washington Post article about him. Let me find the notes actually for it really quick. So it's a Washington Post article from the 70s, and basically this George Macmillan lived with him for a little bit just to kind of figure out who this guy was. And essentially, so yeah, he's born in Belarus. He's very highly educated. He had 2 PhDs, specifically in like engineering for like oil refinery, blah blah blah. Kind of jumped around. He had a habit of marrying rich widows. He had 4 wives in his lifetime, so he was actually born to a noble family, but they didn't own a lot of land, which is what you need in Russia to be powerful. So kind of a strange person, but ends up in Texas because that's where so much oil refining was happening. So he was familiar with a lot of people, and he actually had met Jackie Onassis when she was a girl. He met not Jackie Onassis, but Jackie Bouvier. Yeah, it's her maiden name. But he met her, which is a very strange coincidence because her family was influential, and he was trying to. He's kind of like Gaston Means, if you watch Boardwalk Empire, the one that Stephen Root played, where he's kind of this like upward social climber, a bit manipulative, but people seem to like him because he's interesting to talk to. And it is strange. And Marina was interviewed, and she's like, it was weird that this millionaire was hanging out with my husband all the time. And you're like, why, other than the speaking Russian, which he commented that Lee's Russian wasn't even that good. Why would they be hanging out so much?
Yeah,
it just seems very strange. And then he testified before the Warren Commission, and then he was summoned to testify again in the 70s. And he reached out to George H.W. Bush and asked, hey, can you help me here? And he basically said, like, I have washed my hands, and then killed himself and left no suicide note.
Oh.
So very intriguing.
He?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's just a quick rundown of his bio.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know about the suicide. That's pretty wild. That just feeds so much more, especially reaching out to Bush. God,
isn't that so weird?
Yeah, you could go on another rabbit hole. Like, there's so many rabbit holes in this that you can go into.
And just meeting Jackie at one point, it's like of all the millions of people in the world who have met her and then possibly be involved.
Some harmonizing here.
This whole thing is because she like snubbed him.
Yeah,
and he's like, you know what? I'm going to spend my whole life getting revenge on you.
He was a snoot.
Yep.
But why was he hanging out with, it is strange if you're a millionaire and you're hanging out with this guy who's paying $25 rent, or $60 rent a month.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 things. Number one, he said, like, they talk about in the book how this is a time period when if it's just like you just fake it till you make it kind of thing. You just like pretend you belong and you belong. And it sounds like he's one of those guys that's just like, no, I'm a rich, powerful man and I belong here. And it's just kind of like, that's just accepted. Right. And then, because you can't Google people and find out, find their Facebook page and find out who they really are. So he just belongs. And then 2, it's just somehow it sounds like he found out about Lee and is like, I can do something with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't have the guts and I'm not stupid enough to do anything, but it sounds like this guy might be.
Yeah.
And so he's just going to manipulate him.
Yeah. He I think the Stephen Root comp is really good, Flieger, because he's just like that on Boardwalk Empire. And I'd almost make the spoilers for Justified, which stars Neil Searcy, or boy who plays Nick, who plays
RD?
Deke Simmons here. So Sam Elliott is a character in Justified that feels a lot like George here, who's like this wealthy guy that has his hands in a lot of honeypots has his hands in a lot of different jars, and he basically moves everything. He's the hand that is trying to get things, larger, big picture things for himself. And that's kind of how I got I think that's how it's kind of almost like portrayed here. Any other thoughts on George? It seems like a pretty good, it seems out of all the characters here, like he seems to be the one that leans more on just like King was like, all right, let's just kind of stick to the brass tacks history. I'm not going to really try to emotionalize this too much here.
I do think it's interesting that his name is George. I don't think that's a coincidence, because I think King would have edited that back if he didn't want to, because like all of the stuff that Jake is telling Sadie about the Cuban Missile Crisis could easily be interpreted as like radical bullshit, because she doesn't know any of this is really going to happen. So it's just kind of interesting to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, and I think he's got a weird charisma to him, and I think Lee is clearly looking for some sort of authority figure, whether it's his mom, whether it's embracing communism and moving. He joined the Marines when he was younger. He's looking for someone to kind of give him the direction that he can't seem to determine for himself. And George just, whether he's CIA handler or not, remains to be seen. But I think he recognizes like, this is a guy that will do basically what I tell him. He's easy to manipulate.
Yeah.
Like Jake and Al, like Jake started the novel as a man looking for a mission, and he just happened to find someone with an altruistic mission,
Yeah.
Well, I think Lee's also one of those people that's been looking to feel special and like looking for people to think he's smart for forever, right? And in real life, Lee, which we don't have to get into, there was several instances of that where he thought he was more important than anybody else did. And finally, somebody is, pretending at the very least to think that he's on an equal playing field.
Yeah,
so
you can be famous or you can be infamous.
Yeah.
If they'd only had Twitter at the time,
I know.
we could have stopped all of this.
You could radicalize way sooner.
Yeah. Oh, sad. Jesus.
Oh.
I feel like if they did have Twitter, then I feel like Kennedy, who, if it was a target that high, would probably be, iced much earlier.
Oh, yeah.
If that was the case. You brought up kind of like the parallel between him being like the Jake in this sense, because he would be like a twinner, but could he be a twinner for Lauren Bobart? Because on page 503, it's mentioned that he has a penchant for fondling his wife's boobs in public. I love Peter, Paul, and Mary, but do we love Peter and Paul Gregory? So these are two real life figures. Did you have any information on them, Flieger? Or
not a whole lot. I don't even recall really who they are. Are they just in the social circle?
Yeah.
Like
they're in the social circle, and so this is really interesting. What I found in the research on this is that, I think they're really important for Marina as a character, just because they're gonna, it's a shoulder for her. But I didn't know this, but like, so Paul, the son, that's learning from her, he just published a book last year called The Oswalds, an untold account of Marina and Lee. I feel like I should have read that, but hey, we can only do so much at the
That's
Losers
right.
Club. But he talks about how he saw Lee on TV after the shooting and was like, I know that person. I know that family. Isn't that creepy? Like,
super creepy.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And I imagine Paul's book that came out, he's in his 80s now, which is wild. It shows you the difference of it, like how long this ago this all was. 60 years. It's wild.
Yeah. And it seems like Marina has the reason she's in the center in part is because she's very attractive. They mentioned several times in the book. And you can imagine if you're a guy who speaks, native Russian, how much fun it would be to flirt with a beautiful woman in your native tongue. Whereas it might be difficult if you have language barriers to flirt with women who only speak English. So it seems like George is a bit of womanizer also. And he kind of sticks around because he enjoys just like talking to her. Yeah. It seems like with the Peter Paul Gregory, there might be something with that too.
Yeah, I just think it's King having to certainly pad the story, right? Like if you can't necessarily, I imagine King really didn't want to try to like lean too hard into the sandbox and create fiction here. And I think by introducing as many characters that were real life as possible, not only because that's just the way history unfolded, but there's a long time here. And I think by introducing this, it allows King to basically show that duration of time without having to, kind of lean on his fictional aspects of things, which is smart, I think. So are we good here? Are we good in Dallas? Yeah. All right. Well, guess what? For now, we'll be back as Arnold Schwarzenegger says.
As George de Mohrenschildt says.
As George de Mohrenschildt says, yeah.
I'll be back.
Yeah, as he's walking out the theater with just fondling his wife like a creep. But we'll be back here next week
for Beetlejuice Part 2.
Yeah, for Beetlejuice Part 2. Or no, the prequel of Beetlejuice at that point, Juice.
Oh,
Juice
or Beetle, whatever you want to go with. So let's go back to Jodie. That's good, but guess what? It's not good. It's not fun. This isn't going to be a fun trip because we have to talk about the closing climax of this particular segment of the book. Mr. Johnny Clayton, come on down. He's kind of another Ultimate King character too. So we mentioned that things are tough with Sadie. There was a broom in her past, which we should probably bring up here a little bit. Johnny Clayton is her ex. Got to get used to saying that, ex, and he's got a pretty destructive streak. He's abusive. He's OCD. He's suffering from severe mental illness. He's received shock treatment. And he is certainly someone that Jake has the foresight of knowing is going to come back. And boy, does he ever. So why don't we think that Sadie takes those warnings that Jake gave her seriously? Do you think that she just didn't really ever think too much about this guy? Was it the sign of the times? What do we think?
I think it's easy to live in your happiness and not want to think that he's going to come back. But yeah, like she gets these notes from him, so she knows he knows where she lives. Mm-hmm. But
also he was so awful to her, and it's like, why would he care? Yeah. She has every reason to think that she, like he doesn't want her. He doesn't like her. He does maybe she's doing them both a favor by just, I'm going to go.
Yeah. I think it's wishful thinking too. Like, I don't want to give up my life here. So I don't want to, I've left that behind. I want it to stay in my past.
Yeah. He's a little bit of a cartoon also. Yeah. I feel, and I think some of the way the OCD is portrayed here is not quite as accurate. It's a lot of like dime store psychology. But you can see like he is obsessive at the very least. So he is going to want to keep chasing her down. And she's naive to think like, well, my parents won't tell him my address. And you get that he's manipulative. So it's not a huge surprise to see that he can figure out how to get in contact with her.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me too, though, because she also mentions like how he's non-confrontational and he's not going to say those things. So which I think is part of the bigger story question is, would he have actually come back for her, or is there something else at play?
Well,
that's using him.
I've got a little Room 237 theory here. So, not to spoil our King's Dominion, but he's driving around in a Plymouth Fury, and we know the influence that Christine has on Arnie Cunningham, which is going to happen later on in the late 70s. But do we think that Clayton is not only being, influenced by Father Time, but also maybe possessed by Christine, who could be the Plymouth Red Fury, and that explains his total switch of a character.
Well, I mean, if all things serve the beam, then I think, this is a piece of it. I don't think it's a coincidence at all that he's driving a Fury. And it's so interesting because I feel like the big connection is Bev and Richie in this book, but this is a really big shout out as well, especially considering what these two characters do, because he feels more like LeBay than I'm rereading Christine right now, and he feels a lot more like LeBay than he does Arnie, or maybe a wannabe LeBay. So kind of Arnie, what Arnie would become if Dennis didn't step in, you know?
Yeah. Well, maybe like when he kills himself, LeBay gets out of the back seat and then goes in or the front and is just like, well,
he's like,
on to the next town. It's like,
he's like, I remember check out that Libertyville.
off to Pennsylvania. Rachel, sorry, I didn't mean it. It's a car expert here. What are your thoughts?
I do think, I mean, every time Christine pops up, I'm like, yay. He like touches the back of her car. You're like, hello. I see him a little bit more like leaning towards Arnie, just because it seems like even before he became intertwined in this story, that he was really susceptible to taking on other issues, right? Like he's afraid of nuclear war, and like he's like highly affected by outward sources, right? And like just obsessive about that. And so I think that it's not a far step to take it one step further and make him come after Sadie in this way. And so I think that kind of speaks to the whole LeBay and Christine effect, is that he could be easily swayed.
Yeah. Well, it's like what we were talking about with Frank Dunning. It's like the alcoholism is there and Derry amplifies it.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like here, this OCD, this mental illness he has is there, and Christine is the vehicle that amplifies it. You know?
Right.
Yeah. And who would have leased him the car? Maybe Randall Flagg. Who knows?
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
Randall Flagg, yeah.
He seems like he would be susceptible to like that sort of influence, but there's nothing in the text that indicates.
He does have big Harold Lauder vibes. You know?
Yeah. I just see him walking away, kind of like Henry Bowers does in It. And he's like leaving that mental institution. He's just like, and then old Denim Dan comes by. Randall Flagg is like, "Hey, need a car? I got a good one.
You look good in this, my friend."
Denim Dan.
But I thought the broom metaphor was great, because at first I was like, I don't remember, but when Sadie's like, and the broom, I was like, oh God. And
I know, right?
She's like, I'll tell you in the future. And I was like, oh, I don't remember that happening.
Library policeman zone.
But the idea that it's used as like a dividing line in the bed. But then I liked how Jake and Sadie start to use like the broom as a metaphor of like, you're the one putting the broom here. And with him not being open and her also sometimes putting up the broom.
Also, abuse isn't always physical, right? So it's a nice like counter, especially what we see with Lee and Marina, to just be like, they're both abused and taken advantage of, but that can, present itself in different ways.
Yeah, it's like a Gerald's Game. It's like the manipulation after was arguably just as bad as what happened before. It's like his treatment of her, the broom symbolizes this mental abuse,
It's almost darker that way, because, King is very, it's funny, he's very self-aware at our dark predilections and our instincts, because when he mentions the broom, the first thing he says is like, oh, there's worse things that you can do with the broom. And, it's mentions like the physical abuse of what you could do with the broom, and in a very sexual way too, which is like how dark and depraved we get as a readers, to think like when they mention the broom, I was like, oh my God, are we going to go there? And then he's like, he's self-aware about it. But then I think this is even more like, I mean, it's the weirdness of the long-term aspects of what it would do mentally is just really harrowing and like dark, of just knowing that like this thing that we have to do every day, which is supposed to be our relaxing thing, which is, and especially with your loved one, is hampered by this, not by a hamper, but by a broom. And it's just like laying in the middle of this bed is just such an eerie, like it's eerie iconography for us to think about.
Yeah, it reminded me of like Zodiac, when he like puts the plates on someone's back, and it's like, if you move, I will know. Yeah,
it's just creepy as fuck. But any other thoughts on this guy? Glad he's gone.
I mean, we're going to talk about him a lot in the Sadie character corner. So
stay tuned for that. I only have one more question left for Heroes and Villains, and that's the use of foreshadowing. So King, and by proxy Jake, because he's telling the story, they use a ton of foreshadowing in this section. So much that upon reread, I'm surprised he tips his hat in a few situations. There's the Vince Knowles. He tips his hat on that. a little bit. He talks about the shoes he received from Sadie and how he still has them from till this day. And rereading that in hindsight, I'm like, oh, interesting. He says he hears the music in his dreams of that wonderful moment with Sadie on the dance floor. And especially on page 558, when Jake realizes the reset is not only going to affect the safety box that he just got and secured for his documents, but also his relationship to Sadie. How do you feel upon second read about this foreshadowing? And is it just because we've read it that we're really aware of it now? Or do you think on your first read, this stuff did tip the hat to you?
I remember reading the first time and thinking something's going down, and it's also Stephen King too, it's not John Irving, so I was like, oh, something's going to happen, especially if you've read Christine and you see a Plymouth Fury start to kind of circle your block. You're like,
yeah. It's just interesting because I think that the way the use of the foreshadowing is, he does it so much to create and amplify the horror when it actually happens, because it stays on the brain. It keeps with you. I think the way he does it here is really smart to kind of fuel the anxiety that Jake is having by being stuck between these two stations. And so it's another, I think, flex that King's able to use in a different way. That I like.
And I think what keeps his writing always like a page turner is, and I forget the exact example here, but he'll end a chapter with like, they were blah, blah, blah. But that would be the last 2 weeks that he sees him. Yeah. And then you're like, wait, what is that? Like, he gives you just enough of a morsel.
It's from the stand, It's nobody ever in the free zone ever saw Dana Jurgens again. Yeah. That's like this gorgeous passage about Jake and Sadie, and then the blow up came 2 weeks later.
Yes,
I love that. It's so good. It's so good.
Nothing gold can stay, you know, but that's life. It's like we have these watershed moments. We go to the fireworks factory, but we don't live there. Life keeps going.
Yeah. All right. I think that's enough for the faces. Let's flip on to the rest of our notes. And this is strange, but my next page of notes just has one word scribbled again and again and rattled. Some might even say devastating handwriting. And that word is misery.
She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away? Slipped away? She didn't just slip away. You did it. You did it. You did it. You did it! You did it! You murdered my misery!
Annie!
This is, again, not an easy section for us, because I think this book is pretty goddamn stellar, but there's a couple of things here and there. Let's do a round robin real quick. Rachel, what pieces of misery do you have for us?
I didn't have a whole lot, but on page 365, when they're talking about the dance and the DJ, and he talks about how he brought his records in Samsonite suitcases. That really bothered me. That is not a proper way to transport your records. And as somebody who worked at a record store for a very long time, whenever somebody came in with CDs or records in a suitcase, you knew that was not going to be a good buy, a used buy. Like, nothing is good is going to come of this.
Did you tell him that?
Yeah.
No, but you would be shocked how many times people walk in and like, I got some CDs to sell, and it's in a giant suitcase, and you're like, oh fuck.
Good. Samsonite. I was way off.
Classic Dumb and Dumber. Jim Carrey.
That was my personal misery. But honestly, like I loved all of this. Like, it's a thick section, but I just was ravenous with it, so there wasn't a whole lot that I didn't enjoy.
Flieger.
The section of Sadie trying to kill herself, I didn't really buy. And I get, like, you know, people have reasons for what they do, but it seemed like maybe because.
But was she trying to kill herself? I thought it was just like accidental.
It might have been passive or accidental.
Yeah, I mean, maybe cry for help, but like, it's someone, the generation that has been on the brink of end of the world so many times. It seems like just this note from her ex-husband. And I get, you know, she's got the whole stuff going on with the Jake/George, but it just seemed like a little bit of a jump there that I don't know. It just didn't, that part didn't feel earned for me.
Yeah. Well, I won't put you on my speed dial if anything happens. Be like, no big deal. No, but I can see where you're coming from on that. It's very, I guess you could make the argument that it's very like serialized soap opera-ish.
And him showing up at the exact moment. You know what I mean? It feels a little too magical.
Yeah.
Well, the
Jen,
past harmonizes,
It's true. Yeah, especially in this book. Jen, any misery for you?
Yes, I have two. One, the part where he licks her lips is so disgusting to me. Grossed me out. I have a thing with spit. But so here's and this is a little bit of just Jen misery. I don't necessarily really have a problem with King. On page 380, he says, "It's fine," I said. "It really wasn't. It never had been. There would be improvements in a great many American products between 1961 and 2011, but take it from Jake. Rubbers stay pretty much the same. Wah, wah. They have many fancier names and even a taste component for those with peculiar tastes, but they remain essentially a girdle you snap over your dick." So... I agree, and he did not make Sadie feel bad about this, but I would like to explain to Jake, not Stephen King, because I know he understands, how unpleasant it can be to carry a baby for 40 weeks and then give birth to it. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm putting my soapbox away now.
I liked the girdle part, though, because it is uncomfortable. I know it's not the same, but...
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah. You know what? Just for my second. If we could spend just a little bit of our time and energy making condoms more comfortable, then maybe women wouldn't be solely responsible for all of their birth control. And I do love that Jake is responsible for it. He's fine. He's like, he complains to us. He doesn't complain to Sadie.
Yeah.
That's just a tiny little bit of my own misery.
It's just, I think it's a good distinction because of just how, in long-term couples, it does become a moot thing nowadays because of just the type of, birth control that we have at our advantage. And I think going to the 50s, that would be like oh man, this is great. Awesome. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I forgot this hasn't really evolved yet.
Exactly. Like, what do you do?
When you become single again after relationships, that's always one part of misery where you're like, gotta start wearing condoms again.
Or it's the fear of that starts coming into again. But the only one I had was so we all talk about the hysterical laughter that's in all the King's books. The one, this is a silver lining though. There is a silver lining at the end of this misery. So on page 366, it's Sadie and George talking. "Do you want me to come with you? I want you to keep an eye on the punch bowl. If any young man approaches it with a bottle of anything, even cough syrup, I want you to threaten him with electrocution or castration, whichever you think might be more effective." She, being Sadie, leaned back against the wall and laughed until tears sparkled in the corners of her eyes. "Get out of here, George. You're awful." But here's what I love. Here's the silver lining. King is very self-aware about this. He goes, he's like, I was glad I'd made her laugh, but even after 3 years, it was easy to forget how much more effect sexually tinged jokes have in the land of a go. So it's a good use of the exasperated laughter.
At least she didn't break explosive wind.
Oh, I know.
Like
gosh.
Rachel.
God.
Not Rachel Reeves, Rachel Creed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, any other messy stuff? No? Well, let's I see a sun coming through the clouds, and it's beaming onto the word processor of the gods.
And we're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
This is where we are going to celebrate the beautiful prose, and holy shit, does this section have a ton of it. One of my favorite sections, actually, of all time by Stephen King. I went back to my first edition, and let's just say I committed the sin of marking it with pencil, which I still cannot believe, but I loved it so much, and I dog-eared it. So I'll kick it off with that one, because I think
one that we all have, the Dancing is Life section.
Well, that's one of them.
Oh,
but
really?
this is a very specific one that I love, just because this is. I'll read it right here. It's on page 390. Thanks to Deke Simmons, Sadie finally got to find out what it was like to make love after sundown. When I asked her how it was, she told me it had been wonderful. But I'm looking forward to waking up next to you in the morning, even more. Do you hear the wind? I did. It hooted around the eaves. Doesn't that sound make you feel cozy? Yes. I'm going to say something now. I hope it doesn't make you uncomfortable. Tell me. I guess I've fallen in love with you. Maybe it's just the sex. I've heard that's a mistake people make, but I don't think so. Sadie? Yes? She was trying to smile, but she looked frightened. I love you too. No maybe or mistake about it. Thank God, she said, and snuggled close. Just that visual of them finally being together. And I am a sucker for the sound of the wind. If I had an icebreaker to give with David Lynch, it'd be just talking about the music of the wind. There'll be times when like we'll be walking back from somewhere at night during the summer, and you can feel that fall breeze come in and the way that it dances in the trees. And I'll just stand there and like looking like I'm like fucking like one of the creatures in Cell, and Sam will just be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I want to take this in. This is my favorite aspects of life. It's just this, and it's why one of the reasons why I think I gravitate in this section so much towards King's portraits of nature, because I think he appreciates that sort of natural harmony too. I know it's a small slice, but I remember first reading that and just being like, oh God, this is heaven. Like being with your loved one away from everyone in the middle of the night and just hearing the wind and just cozying up. It's like, it is that cozy feeling. So yeah, I just had to read that one. But Rachel, you go.
Yeah. So one of them for me was at Vince's funeral. And so it's on 398 in the first edition. And he says, Vince really hadn't been much of an actor, but that photo caught him wearing an absolutely perfect wise-ass smile. Sadie began to sob, and I knew why. Life turns on a dime, sometimes towards us, but more often it spins away, flirting and flashing as it goes. So long, honey. It was good while it lasted, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just, yeah, being in a situation like that and being able to like take a step back and just like, it's just always just a powerful thing, I think, when you're able to separate yourself for just a moment and see it and just feel the weight of it. Like it's pretty, he captures that well, I think, right there.
Yeah. Flieger.
Yeah, so in the interest of time, I'm not going to read all the pages, but it's essentially saying that Jodie is home, right? Mm-hmm. And I like the way he ends it. It's really like a great nostalgia for this time period. So it's after the funeral, but they're saying how things have changed. People become friendlier. People saying howdy on the street. People giving me away from their cars. Al Stevens taking Sadie and me to the table at the back that he started calling our table. Playing cribbage on Friday afternoons in the teacher's room with Danny Laverty for a penny a point. Arguing with elderly Miss Meyer about who gave the better newscast, Chet Huntley and David Brinkley, or Walter Cronkite. My street, my shotgun house, getting used to using a typewriter again, having a best girl and getting S&H green stamps with my groceries, and real butter on my movie popcorn. Home is watching the moon rise over the open, sleeping land, and having someone you can call to the window so you can look together. Home is where you dance with others, and dancing is life. I think that's really powerful, and that dancing is life. It's so, and it mirrors, there's Cormac McCarthy, Blood Meridian ends with the judge dancing and dancing, and so sinister, whereas this is such a sweet sentiment for it. And I like the idea of, having someone that you can call over to look, so you get to enjoy these moments and share them rather than just bottle them up to yourself.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite passages King's written.
Yeah. It's a fucking great passage. I love it. Yeah.
I had that one marked too. Yeah.
Yeah. Jen.
I have one when Sadie is talking about what happened with Johnny on page 391, Jake says, or thinks, for most of us, I think it's easier to admit doing wrong than being stupid. Not that she had been. There's a world of difference between stupidity and naivete, which I think might come into play when I give my final thoughts over this whole novel. But I just love that kind of realization is like, it's really hard to admit that you messed up, you missed it, you know?
Yeah. I have, he's just really good at like, but I mean, we talked about it last week, but just having those one-liners or those, you know, the aim away quotes that you would put on your profile or maybe your live journal or your MySpace, but like just ones that stay with you. So on page 411, he writes, sometimes a man and a woman reach a crossroads and linger there, reluctant to take either way, knowing the wrong choice will mean the end and knowing there's so much worth saving. And just like, he's really good at just like looking at life and finding that one line. I mean, the Body's full of that. Like, honestly, Different Seasons is chock full of that. But like, this is what I'm talking about. When he gets into the drama, that's why it's his strongest flex, because he knows how to create those lines that we all go, yep, that's right. Here we go.
Yeah.
Rachel.
I had one from Dallas. It's very short, but it's when I just liked how he put it together. It's when Kennedy's giving that speech and he says, "What I saw in Kennedy's face was fright and determination in equal measure. What I also saw was life, a total engagement with the job at hand. He was exactly 13 months from his date with the assassin's bullet." Just like, it's just like, to me, it's just like it would talking about that surrealness of witnessing something that you, and just like putting it into context and how you could see somebody being so engaging and then be like, oof, I got 13 months and that guy's dead. Like that's wild to me.
I have one funny one when he says, "God damn Rolling Stones."
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine like maybe when Sticky Fingers came out, the Beatles record label was like, "God damn Rolling Stones."
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oiled by the Rolling Stones.
Have the Rolling Stones killed.
Yeah, take them out.
What if that was like the mission?
Yeah.
It's like, you got to go stop the Beatles.
Just stop the Beatles. Yeah. Go for it, Jen.
I have one. This is, I always talk about, there are like 3 or 4 sections that make me cry every single time I read this book. And on page 422, this is one of the sections.
Yeah. It's
right after the Jamboree. It's like, I read this and had like a little 5-minute good cry. Like I had to sit down and stop doing stuff. Okay. There was a moment of quiet as they processed the announcement that they're going to pay for Bobby Jill's surgery. Then they leaped to their feet. The applause was like summer thunder. I saw Bobby Jill herself on the bleachers. She was weeping with her hands over her face. Her parents had their arms around her. Oh, it's going to make me cry. This was one night in a small town, one of those burgs off the main road that nobody cares about much except for the people who live there. And that's okay because they care. I looked at Bobby Jill, sobbing into her hands. I looked at Sadie. There was cream in her hair. She smiled. So did I. She mouthed, "I love you, George." I mouthed back, "I love you too." That night, I loved them all and myself for being with them. I never felt so alive or happy to be alive. How could I leave all this? Indeed.
Yeah, so good.
So fucking good.
It's just like this moment of pure joy. And there are so many times that he captures that in this book. It's just, it makes me cry every time.
The audiobook is really good too. Craig Watson's really good. And like, he gets really emotional in certain parts. And like, it makes me like, I'm like driving and like, oh God.
I know. Oh man, his voice when Tugga dies, like it full on cracks and you can tell he's starting to cry. Yeah. It's a really great audiobook. I have one of those little lines that we were talking about on page 523.
Yeah.
Here is a strange thing I've noticed. Women are better at keeping secrets, but men are more comfortable with them. Yeah. I just thought that was so interesting. It's like Jen bait,
And all this stuff.
I also loved it.
I mean, I kind of struggled here because it's like so much of it is, some of his best writing actually happens to be like what you could argue for Pound Cake.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll save it 100%. For that section, I think. So, yeah. Any other passages? I mean, I know we probably have more, but I mean, this is just such a well-written book. And I'm sure that I do think that this section alone, though, is some of the best parts of it. Like this, I mean, and last week we talked about the upper woods in Maine. This one, just the way that he's able to really get to the nitty-gritty about love, it just hits.
Well, it feels like as Jake is like setting his roots down, it feels like King is doing that too. He's like really kind of putting his feet up and just really enjoying Jodie. And I think that's where all of this beautiful writing comes from.
Well, it's just reading this and then also going back to some of his other town books where he's, the ensemble town books. This lets you just show like what's always at stake in those stories. Like this could be Salem's A Lot of Things Were Good. Like this could be, the fucking Chester's Mills if you didn't have the Rennies and a fucking dome over it. Like it's just
these are the moments we don't see there.
Yes. Yeah. It's very Capra-esque, but I love it. Now we've been traveling a little bit back and forth. It hasn't been a road trip, but it's certainly been a trip. And mostly it's just nothing really to look at. But there was one place that caught my eye. It was a little out in the distance. I might have even just missed it totally. I didn't. And that's the cemetery.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
So, scariest moments. There are some very jarring and alarming scenes in this section of the book, but are they cemetery worthy? Jen, let's start with you.
I have the only thing I really have, and it kind of sums up my feelings about the whole Johnny Clayton thing and how scary it is. On page 571, her arm and the side of the sofa where it dangled were both covered with blood, but worst of all was her face, which was turned toward him. Her left cheek hung in two flaps like a torn curtain.
Ugh, yeah, just awful. I don't think they go hard enough in it in the show.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah. She's still got to look pretty,
Yeah. Sarah Gadon's just like, look at my face, and I'm just like,
it's like a little artful.
Yeah. She's got paint on her overalls. But Flieger, any scary moments?
Yeah, I think just the broom and not remembering what that was going to lead to, and just having like. It's like Norm Macdonald jokes about Jeffrey Dahmer. You know those. I'm not going to say them, but there's a lot of bad things that a broom can be used for. And I was just like, oh my God, no.
Yeah. The whole Clayton backstory is pretty unnerving. It reminds me a lot of like Frank Dodd in some ways too. Rachel, what scared you?
Well, what Jen just read. And then also it's just, I don't know if it was scary, but there was just a lot of parts that made me, uncomfortable, talking about like when, Lee's beating Marina, and just kind of a lot of like the physical abuse stuff. And I mean, there's a lot of it, I feel like. And so, but then again, it's not that I don't want it in there, because I feel like that's accurate, but it's just hard to read sometimes.
Yeah.
And then just some of the language sometimes similarly, it's like, oof, I don't want to hear that, but okay. But also same thing, right? Like the time period. And I understand why it's there, but it doesn't make it any easier to read and get through.
Think the Jimla is scary too.
Yeah.
And King is great at picking these like nonsense words that represent the monster, or whether it's personified, but Dark Tower has a lot of chanting of weird words. A lot of, I think in Lisi's story, there's chanting of weird words. So Jimla is very scary.
And it's very foreboding because especially as it goes, it's like we don't quite understand it. And so it's just like, oof, like you just feel it and not really sure, like, what does this mean?
There was one line, I wrote down the wrong page number, but it's about like the image of the president getting the headshot, and then he's just another soul in a series of souls that are standing outside the gates or something like that. Like that image is so creepy, of just the idea that like in the end we're all just going to be in this one line, and it doesn't matter who you were in real life. You're just this soul now that's destined to just stand there with everyone else. And that image just gave me a shock. But that was one. And then on that same note, I think Jake's dream on page 395 is pretty eerie also. I mean, this is like King writing with his eyes closed at this point, because he's so good at this. I drowsed afterward, not deep. I could still hear the wind in the one rattling window pane, but I got far enough down to dream. Sadie and I were in an empty house. We were naked. Something was moving around upstairs. It made thudding, unpleasant noises. It might have been pacing, but it seemed as if there were too many feet. I didn't feel guilty that we were going to be discovered with our clothes off. I felt scared. Written in charcoal on the peeling plaster of one of the walls were the words, "I will kill the president soon." Below it, someone had added, "Not soon enough. He's full of disease." This had been printed in dark lipstick, or maybe it was blood. Thud, clump, thud from overhead. "I think it's Frank Dunning," I whispered to Sadie. I gripped her arm. It was very cold. It was like gripping the arm of a dead person. A woman who had been beaten to death with a sledgehammer, perhaps. Sadie shook her head. She was looking up at the ceiling, her mouth trembling. Clud, thump, clud. Plaster dust, sifting down. "Then it's John Clayton," I whispered. "No," she said. "I think it's the yellow card man. He brought the Jimla." Above us, the thudding stopped abruptly. She took hold of my arm and began to shake it. Her eyes were eating up her face. Ugh, this is such a creepy fucking image.
Yeah.
It's the Jimla, and it's hurt us. The Jimla knows we're here. And that kind of builds on what Flieger was just talking about. Like, yeah, those words, when he just throws them and associates them with harrowing scenes like that, that's the stuff of nightmares when King can deliver. And he does it. It's probably the easiest thing for him to do. It's probably his easiest flex. That's like, and it kills me every time. So that one definitely stuck. Also, when you think about how the lipstick does come back when Clayton comes in. So he's almost like seeing like a future a little bit too. Any other cemeteries? Any other scary moments? Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Well, all the spooky talk, as always, has made me incredibly hungry. And you know what that means. It's time for a slice of pound cake.
After all you've been talking, everyone in bad, mama, everything in the sin.
Come to your closet and pray. Ask to be forgiven.
He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him, Mama.
Pound cake.
This is a big one. This is a big one because this is where, the pound cake was first introduced. So round of applause, everyone. We've got to it. After 7 years, we finally got to the pound cake.
Yeah, make it clap.
Yeah.
Oh,
God.
It's pound
to
cake.
work with it. It is.
That's
it
true,
is.
yeah.
So who wants to read the first slice of pound cake we got? Does anyone have the page number or?
You mean the first ever, the actual
The
first
first
pound cake?
ever. We got to do it. We got to.
I've got it.
You got it. All right, here we go.
On page 375. Thank God, but it's still nothing to be talking about on the phone, and certainly not at Al's Diner over prong burgers. Can you come for supper? We could have a little nice picnic in my backyard, say around 5. That would be fine. I'll bring a pound cake or something.
Interesting. And then 377, you start getting a little word that this pound cake's not going to go away. It's not going to expire anytime soon. They might be buying more pound cake or they might be baking it. But so I went to the Weingartens and bought a pound cake after all. So we're seeing it's sticking around. And then on 379, the 380. And this is actually tasteful. I think this is actually tasteful pound cake. It says, I wanted to go fast. Every part of me was yelling for speed, telling me to plunge deep, wanting that perfect gripping sensation that is the essence of the act. But I went slow, at least at first. Then she said, don't make me wait. I've had enough of that. And so I kissed the sweaty hollow of her temple and moved my hips forward as if we were doing a horizontal version of the Madison. She gasped, retreated a little, then raised her own hips to meet me. Sadie, all right? Oh my God, yes, she said. And I laughed. She opened her eyes and looked up at me with curiosity and hopefulness. Is it over or is there more? A little more. I don't know how much. I haven't been with a woman in a long time. It turned out there was quite a bit more. Only a few minutes in real time, but sometimes time is different, as no one knew it better than I. In the end, she began to gasp, oh dear, oh my dear, oh my dear, dear, dear God, oh sugar. It was the sound of greedy discovery in her voice that put me over the edge. So it wasn't quite simultaneous, but a few seconds later, she lifted her head, buried her face in the hollow of my shoulder. A small fisted hand beat on my shoulder blade once, twice, then opened like a flower and lay still. She dropped back onto the pillows. She was staring at me with a stunned, wide-eyed expression that was a little scary. I came, she said. I noticed. Quote, my mother told me it didn't happen for women, only for men. She said orgasms for women were a myth. She laughed shakily. Oh my God, what was she missing? She got up on one elbow, then took one of my hands and put it on her breasts. Beneath it, her heart was pounding and pounding. Tell me, Mr. Emerson, how soon before we can do it again? And right after that, it says, as the reddening sun sank into the everlasting gas and oil smog to the west, Sadie and I sat in her tiny backyard under a nice old pecan tree, eating chicken salad sandwiches and drinking iced tea. No pound cake, of course. The pound cake was a total loss. So the association of the pounding and the pound cake, there you go. That is it. And it becomes their slogan. We get more of it, obviously. Did anyone have these earmarked for pound cake?
I have 386 marked.
Yeah. Read that one.
Okay. So there's a letter from Sadie. Dear George, if you still want to take me to dinner tonight, it will have to be 5-ish because I'll have early meetings all this week and next, getting ready for the fall book sale. Perhaps we could come back to my place for dessert. I have pound cake if you'd like a slice. Sadie. And then it skips to pound cake became our name for it, and we ate plenty that fall.
Great. It's great stuff. Yeah. I mean, this is it. We did it. I mean, we got here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fucking in this, but I would say it's more word processor of the gods, right?
Yeah, it's very blurry because some of those passages are so beautiful.
I know.
Talking about it's like such a tactful, beautiful way to capture that, and he does such a great job.
I have 372, their first kiss,
which
I think is
me
so
too.
Sweet.
I have that too.
But she didn't say either of those things. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me, hair on her shoulders, top 2 buttons of the man's Oxford cloth shirt beneath the jumper undone, earrings gleaming. Then we were together, first fumbling, then holding on tight. It was kissing, but it was more than kissing. It was like eating when you've been hungry or drinking when you've been thirsty. I could smell her perfume and her clean sweat under the perfume, and I could taste tobacco, faint but still pungent on her lips and tongue. Her fingers slipped through my hair, one pinky tickling for just a moment on the cup of my ear and making me shiver, then locked at the back of my neck. Her thumbs were moving, stroking bare skin at the nape that once in another life would have been covered by hair. I slipped my hand first first beneath and then around the fullness of her breast, and she murmured, "Oh, thank you. I thought I was going to fall." "My pleasure," I said, and squeezed gently.
So cute.
It's so good.
I know. It's so sweet. It just makes you want to make out in a car, you know?
Yeah, it's so romantic. Like the way it would be word processor of the gods for most of this stuff.
Yeah, if we didn't have a pound cake section.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other just more traditional pound cake for us? Because I had go for
some
it.
funny ones. He talks about wanting to go for round 3, but mentioning James Bond.
Yeah,
like I thought that was funny. And I think when they have the pie fight at the school and she like wipes it off and it's like, why waste it? And that I was like, okay, the kids want to see teachers fall in love, but this is getting a little bit that's a little intense.
Oh well, when she said she had cream in her hair too.
Yeah, but it's it's like cream and pound cake that is not frosting.
Yeah.
So
it's like beep beep Sadie. But any other? I know like I thought Clayton's way of she's going like, oh, cock boy like that journey.
Oh,
that made me
yeah.
laugh.
Oh,
just it's such gratuitous language, but that King's just relishing every line. It's just like, cock boy. Okay, I put cock boy in here.
I love her sugar. Like I love that is her O line. You know.
Yeah.
I don't so much like that she says "in flagrante delicious."
Yeah,
but then
I don't know if anyone would say that.
She's new to this. You know,
that's true. I can give her some. Hey, at least she's going for it. You know. Yeah. But I have on page 521. I've got at least 40 minutes before I have to dress for school. Do you happen to have another condom? I think I've discovered a cure for headaches.
That is a great line. Yeah.
Their witty little banter between this. It's just so great. And like, I don't know. If we had 5 more chapters of it, I might get annoyed. But it's so sweet because we like them so much.
But I have such a crush on Sadie too. So it's just like, it's straight up just hot. Like having her an orgasm over and over again and just getting into it. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's like a romance novel.
It is. I mean, it's look, I'm very aware of all the bookstagrammers and the book talk crowd is reading right now because Sammy reads all of it. Hell, when she went on the train in Milwaukee, she like made friends with someone there because they were reading smut books too. So, and she's told me about them, and they're far more foul than anything we've ever read in the pound cake section. So
I'm sure
this is definitely PG pound cake. So
did you say it's tasteful pound cake?
I'd say it's tasteful pound cake. Yeah. Any others?
I think it's funny, just the Deke recommending the romantic getaway. It's kind of like, if you go there, you can fuck her discreetly. It's like, it just kind of, I wouldn't picture Deke having that kind of discussion. And then he's just like,
especially since he's like a father figure almost, right?
Right.
And it's sweet when he's like, sometimes just falling asleep watching television together, but
I had that pulled for word processor too because it's so sweet.
It is.
Old people need to eat pound cake too.
Yeah. Before Sammy goes to bed, she was always like TV, and it's like our laptop because I refuse to have a TV in the bedroom. So but there is something like it's one of my goals at the end of the day. It's like I got to get to the Gilmore Girls theme song. I'm falling asleep. We've just taken our sleeping pills. It's great. So it's the beauty of life.
Frasier.
Yours Frasier. That's the best sleep because it's just.
It is.
The worst is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because it's just like every 20 minutes like dun 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 dun. Now this is a story.
King of the Hill, but the opening credits.
Oh yeah, the King of the Hill one's.
King of the Hill's like a cozy show for me.
Yeah.
Corey listens to Seinfeld to fall asleep lots of times. So
I had
I'll
to
hear
stop that one.
It's too funny.
The laugh tracks.
Yeah. 24 would be a good one. Because like doot. Remember that show?
Sounds like an alarm.
Man, that's another blind spot for me. I never
David
watched that.
from Lost Boys.
Well, Lost Boys, 24, Kiefer Sutherland, Stand By Me. If you follow that path, then you're certainly falling into King's Dominion.
There's another world out there.
I know there is.
We pretty much haven't had a long section since the second one. I feel like he's been pretty good at pumping the brakes on it. So 2 weeks ago, I think that was our biggest section for King's Dominion. I feel like last week we didn't really have too much. I found a couple, but not a ton. We already talked about the Plymouth Fury. That's probably the biggest one. We already talked about whether or not that was going to push Clayton over the edge. So we've gotten that out of the way. I only have a few others, but let's go first. Rachel, did you find any King's Dominion?
Yeah. On page 440, he says, on Thursday, the 14th of June, I dressed in jeans, a blue work shirt, and an old leather vest I'd picked up at the secondhand store on Camp Bowie Road. Just love a good blue work shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. We haven't had one in a while,
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely was a chambray shirt, right? You think so?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
I don't think
it's implied.
Yeah. Do we think that like King's closet is like Doug's closet in the show Doug, where he like opens the closet and there's like all of the green vests and shorts?
Chambray.
It's gonna look like my dad's closet, where it's just a bunch of dorky T-shirts and some buttons, some flannel buttons.
There's just no camo.
My dad's closet is weird because he still has some clothes from the 80s, so he'll have this like red Michael Jackson jacket, and I always give him shit for it. I'm like, did you actually think you were gonna pull this off? Like, are you nuts? Like, you wore the red leather jacket.
You're gonna wear Where's the Beef to my parent-teacher conference?
Yeah, Flieger. You're the KD expert.
Not
Did you
too
forget
much in this, but I would say the lipstick writing on the wall, like the shining red rum.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think Jen mentioned previously, but the hammer, kind of like a croquet mallet. But other than the P.O. Box 1919, and obviously the Prince Albert in a can.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Pennywise, the dancing clown. And that's such a dated, it was one of those jokes that like Bugs Bunny or something would say. And I'd be like, what is Prince Albert? And
yeah.
I knew Prince Albert as like a genital piercing, not as tobacco.
Oh, God.
Well, that's what it's called.
Speaking of pound cake.
I did not know
that's
that.
True.
Yeah.
It is called that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah.
But, I wouldn't know.
The only one I saw out of that is some more Back to the Future Dominion. We like to bring up Back to the Future on this podcast, or at least this series. And the whole discussion about Japan making all the best stuff, that's from Back to the Future 3, which makes me think of, and this is a King site now, that maybe Back to the Future 3, since it's is King's favorite Back to the Future entry. And maybe because a lot of it is very similar to 11/22, because there's a love story at the center of it. So that's all I got.
I've not seen the first one.
I've
first
got
one's the best
more.
movie of all time. But
it's Terminator 2, but
that's true. The time traveling.
That's true. Yeah.
Rachel.
So apparently Sadie drives a VW Bug, which is also what Johnny drives in the Dead Zone.
Oh, interesting. And this is like an inverse of it.
In The Shining, too, they drive
The
Bugs.
Shining, right?
Oh, The Shining.
Yeah.
Is that the bug that they... Oh, because it crashes into the bike that he sees in one of those memories and the flashbacks with his friend, his drinking buddy. What's the other one?
There's a 19... his telephone number is Westbrook 75430. Which adds up to 19.
Oh, nice. Ooh. That is a good catch. That is a good catch. I always forget to add up stuff, but that's
I know. I'm always like, also, I'm sure this isn't King's Dominion, but maybe it is, but maybe it's fact. I don't actually know. Talking about living on Mercedes Street.
Mr. Mercedes.
I was like, Mr. Mercedes. Yeah. Maybe that's where he got it. But I don't know if that's actually like a historical street that Oswald lived on, but maybe that's where he got it.
But that's,
I don't know.
Hey, Jen.
Okay, I've got a couple. So on page, let's see, 542. Oh, and it's a little pound cake. Come eat dessert, you, Sadie said from behind me, and I jumped. The AAs say fear stands for something else as well. Fuck everything and run, which is from Dr. Sleep. I mean, it's also from AA, but he says that a couple of times. And then the way Johnny describes the girls who are like making him do everything, and like they were like, she made me push her down the stairs, reminded me of what we talked about with Beatty in A Good Marriage. Yeah. And I think even talks about Sadie being a snoot at one point. And then also Johnny wearing overalls with comically blonde hair reminded me of the Lawnmower Man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Could that also be MOON? The guy, what's his Tom?
It could be MOON. I like that
Tom
better.
Cullen, yeah.
Although Clayton is no Tom Cullen.
No, definitely not.
And then at one point, Paulette coughs, and she has a rainbird cough.
Oh, interesting.
Like,
I cannot believe I missed that. That is crazy.
Fire starter.
Yeah. What if your boy Rainbird came out and then all of a sudden Charlie McGee is actually the kid having the Rainbird cough?
Well, I would love that.
Yeah.
And maybe Rainbird could be like, I'm not problematic anymore. Yeah. Yay.
Well, I think we've got enough KD for one trip. So why don't we give our final thoughts or not? Because we're still 2 episodes away from that. So what's next? Well, we're kind of in the final stretch. So next Friday, we're back with our 5th episode, the titular 11/22/63. which is not going to be confusing when I put that into the podcast feed. It's basically the grand finale, the final showdown before we get into the 6th episode, which will be more or less like an epilogue, but certainly the ending. Is it a magical bullet? You're going to have to find out. Once again, we'll be having a new familiar face with us. Rachel, it's been wonderful to have you here with us. We've been loving the rotations here. It's been a lot of fun. But I'm not going to say who's next, but let's just say Sadie certainly measures up to him. So there's an obvious hint for everyone that's ever listened to this podcast. For now, though, follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Join our Patreon for more content beyond 1122, which includes our King Miss episode that Jen is literally going to jump into and record in 28 minutes from now.
Yep.
And our new Lobstrosities episode on the Mangler, which Caffrey, Ashley, and myself recorded last night. It's been a busy fucking weekend for the losers. So that's why I think you should say, hey, they know what they're doing. They're doing a lot. Why don't I pay it back, pay it forward? Give us some bright red Pennywise clown noses. I want like 5 of them. Give 5 bright red Pennywise clown noses to us on Apple Podcasts, or even rate us on Spotify. I think they have a cool Q&A section, so you can tell us how you like the episode. Keep it positive. Once again, yeah, what a threat. Keep it positive. yeah, you can tell us what if you thought it was a scum episode, but I'll say you're a scumbag. So
I'll cry. So,
yeah, I don't hold grudges at all, not at all. Once again, thank you to Charlie Lawrence of The Most for our most excellent theme song, the Friends song, and our trusty editor Kyle Rozovich, who always keeps us along the beam, especially this month. Oh my God, Kyle, you are killing it. I cannot believe it's basically 6 book episodes he's been doing in the last, month and a half. That's a lot. Applause to him. Holy shit. But speaking of the beam, we'll be back on it in 2 minutes, or for us time travelers, over long days
and pleasant nights.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
This is the end of our show. For now. Tune in next week. If you like our programming, consider searching for other bloody disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.